Good afternoon, all. Nicola McNichols, my friend. All is well. Beverly Jones, good afternoon. I have your PNM membership form for you, so I'll try and drop it off this week. Jerome Marshall, Alison Rogers, good afternoon. Elizabeth Lakai, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Gabriel Philip, PF Cutters, Marva Frank, Carol Myers. Sunny day indeed, Carol. It is extremely hot. I was out since 5:45 this morning. Um, the Army Veterans Association had a 5K in La Florissant. And so I was invited. Had something different. But I got my medal. Wazid, Elijah Flores, Heather Walters, Karen Spooner, Nikisha Blake, good afternoon. Gaylan Jackson, hi Gaylan. Leon Graves, greetings. Slimy Show, greetings to you. Jacqueline Phillip, Susan Cadogan, Claire Carrington, hi Claire. Marissa Guevara, Celestine, Arlene. Oh, this is the gentleman I met uh, recently. Angela Carty. Right, so it's already 1:17. I don't want to go too long today, so let me jump in. Petal Felix, Margaret Matheson, Lord 6551, Annie Frederick. Yes, Carol, you're on time. So I wanted to start first of all with on this week's edition of another episode of Never a Dull Moment in Trinidad and Tobago with this Kamla Prasad Bisasa led government. We always say, I am convinced now more than ever that the last PNM administration was too boring, really, because every day, practically every week, is something with this government. You can't catch a breather. It's like if there is an issue, you can't really treat with it and give it the amount of time that you need to deal with it because something else comes up. So someone was mentioning to me this week, look how the landmark TT issue just fall by the wayside because other things pop up. Look at how the AI data center matter has fallen by the wayside again, seemingly because of this Hadid matter. And I saw this week, well, last week, where Up North had some press conference and he spoke about the AI data centers and he made mention of the fact that AI data centers are here to stay. There's nothing you could do. Nothing you could do about it. You can't stop it. His words, you can't stop it. Of course, Miss Lady here, that's all she needs to hear to take cue. If Up North say it good, Up North say you can't stop it, well, there'll be no stopping it here because we know she governs by Fox News, right? And she takes her cue from what happens up the road. So again, all this talk by the government that we just signed an MOU and nothing is in concrete, nothing is cast in stone, and it just forms the framework for discussions about the AI data center. As I said before, that is a done deal, and any consultation that they may have going forward is simply to mamagai people to say, well, we listened to the people and we took your opinions on board, and so on. Your prime minister already said, get off your high horse. The country is a dump, and you're complaining about environmental issues. So she's inclined to turn it into a dumping ground, and it is what it is. And if you are against it, well, you are of subpar intelligence. But they accused the last administration, the last prime minister, of being a dictator, and they wanted to turn Trinidad and Tobago into a communist country. You remember that? Yeah, Rowley just talks to people like buffing them up and Rowley this and Rowley that, and Kamla is so loving and caring and she listens to the people. She don't want to hear nothing from her. You all don't hear her, and she don't want to hear all there. Decisions made, promise kept. That's how it is. But who were these promises made to? Okay? And people keep asking, when will the winning start? Then other people are saying, well, when will the winning stop? Remember, up north used to say, well, we winning, we winning. Okay, right. Oh Lord. So let me jump first of all into this issue. Um, this thing one way. So a few days ago, the Indian High Commission put out an advertisement. Well, High Commission of India, Port of Spain, open house for Indian community and diaspora members at the High Commission of India, number 6 Victoria Avenue, Port of Spain. Saturday, it was supposed to have been Saturday, August the 1st, 2026 at 11 a.m. And it caused a little bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for? It was a little stir. All right? And to my mind, rightly so. Because we know the 1st of August is Emancipation Day and the significance of that day to the African community. But for some reason, the Indian High Commission decided that they wanted to have their open house on that day, which nobody had an issue with. You can have your open house any day that you want to. Where people took issue was the part that says for Indian community and diaspora members. So in other words, if you're not a part of the Indian community or a member of the diaspora, you need not attend. Okay? This is specifically for persons of East Indian descent or Indians only. On a day that marks or commemorates something that is significant to the African community. And I always remember this man when I was on 91.9. There was a caller who goes by the name Mr. Pinal. I heard him recently on I-95.5. And he used to like to call in, and I think he loved to irritate people. Very controversial in his comments. But I never forget how he used to call in around emancipation time and talk about, he doesn't really see the significance of it, and that African people need to stop seeing themselves as victims, and that no African alive today was alive during slavery, and therefore he doesn't see what the issue is, and he just need to get over it. But yet still, we saw the state government of Trinidad and Tobago spent a whole set of money a couple months ago to commemorate Indian Arrival Day, where they spent money to fix up some jetty or something somewhere down in South, where the Prime Minister had a reenactment of the arrival of the Fatal Razak, where she came in on a boat with the Indian High Commissioner. And you see when they got off the boat and stuff on the jetty, and clearly a piece of money was spent. I'm pretty sure it wasn't the Indian High Commission money, but yet still they spent money on boats. I think it was 2 or 3 boats that they used in that whole ceremony and so on and all of that. They saw the significance of that day. Nobody from the African community had any issue with that. It was once Arrival Day, marking the arrival of everybody who arrived here, and then somebody became wise and decided that it should become Indian Arrival Day so that it is specific to the East Indian community. Okay. I didn't see the Emancipation Support Committee or any embassy or high commission accredited to the continent, the African continent, advertising that they were having anything on that day, because they respected the significance of that day. The Indian High Commission could have chosen any day. They have 365 days in the year. But you chose August the 1st. Right? Again, as I said, you could have had your open house, no problem. But you made sure and you highlighted in your advertisement it is for the Indian community and the diaspora members. So if it is that you are not minded to support any of the Emancipation Day activities on August 1st, and you're looking for something else to do, if you're not from the East Indian community or the diaspora, please bypass number 6 Victoria Avenue Street. You're not welcome. So come on here, you're not welcome on our open house for that day. And of course, the Foley Duns had an issue with persons of African descent taking issue with that. And they were right to take issue with it. It is disrespectful. The fact that you reinforce that it is for a certain ilk only. And it clearly shows that this Indian High Commissioner is out of touch with what it means to be a diplomat. That when yes, we understand that you are accredited to India. That is, you represent India, and therefore you are supposed to promote things that are related to India. But you are supposed to do so in a manner that is inviting to everybody, regardless of creed and race. Like, he didn't get a memo. So when Randall Mitchell raised the issue and he decided to pen a letter to the Prime Minister of India, registering the discontent of some citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, a significant portion of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who are not from the Indian community or the Indian diaspora, some people took issue with that. But it seems that it brought sense to the Indian High Commission, and they decided to change the date to the 8th of August. Why didn't you do that in the first place? But I see in one of today's newspapers, I think it might be The Guardian, wrote a very foolish opinion, chastising Randall Mitchell and talking about making a mountain out of a molehill and stuff. Clearly, whoever wrote that opinion must not be of African descent, right? Because the same folly dunce who have an issue, and they always try to make this a PNM thing. I don't do the PNM thing, right? Because when I read the comments on social media, there were lots of people who were upset about it, and not only persons of African descent. It wasn't something, a mountain out of a molehill. It was a big issue. And if it wasn't, then the Indian High Commission would have pressed on, and they would have said nothing, remain quiet, and still have their open house on the 1st of August. But they ran quick, and put out a new notice stating that it has been changed to the 8th of August. And then, as I read something that Randall Mitchell put out there, apparently the Indian High Commissioner sought to, let me get it here. So in today's, let me see, is this the Guardian one? Or the Express? I don't know which one. It looks like the Sunday Express. A mountain made from a diplomatic molehill, faced with a backlash over scheduling an open house for the Indian diaspora on August 1st, African Emancipation Day. The Indian High Commission of Trinidad and Tobago rightly took the diplomatic route and shifted the date to the following Saturday. But did the controversy reflect real public opinion, or was it just manufactured by provocateurs seeking to create racial animus for political ends? Utter garbage, rubbish. Shame on you, Express. But we don't expect anything different from you. But I'm sure the UNC, which always attacks the Express, they would love this piece here today. Now, today the Express is not PNM. On social media, trolls, the Express, referring to people for having an opinion, you are considered to be a troll. This is the Express newspaper that want you to spend your money. I continue to refer to the Express as the Jamet of Independence Square. On social media, trolls painted the date as a racist decision by Indian High Commissioner Dr. Pradeep Singh Rajpurohit. That claim only revealed the debased mindset of the persons making it. But then former Tourism Minister Randall Mitchell fanned the flames by penning a letter to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi calling for a review of the conduct and judgment of Mr. Rajpurohit. In a society that had worked for generations to build mutual respect and understanding between the races, Mitchell argued an Indian function on Emancipation Day risked undermining social cohesion in a multicultural society where racial harmony must never be taken for granted. They go on to say, in our opinion, the social media commenters and Mr. Mitchell sought to make a racial mountain out of a diplomatic molehill. And the reductio ad absurdum of his argument is that no Indian-themed event should ever be held on Emancipation Day, with the logical corollary that no African-themed events be organized on Indian Arrival Day. And again, you missed the point, Express. The fact is that when you make it specific to persons of East Indian descent or who belong to the East Indian diaspora, that's where the issue arose. if they had put out the ad and they didn't, and they just said that they have an open house at the Indian High Commission, nobody would have taken any issue with it. But the impression that it gives when you specify who you want, who can attend, who is your target audience on a day that is significant to persons of African descent, it is disrespectful and an insult. That is the point. It has nothing to do with them hosting the thing on that day. All right? It's just connotation that comes from it when you specify. So if you're of any other race, you need not attend. So get it right, Express newspaper. Okay? But you see, this High Commissioner seems to have an affinity to the UNC. When we see his interactions with them, because he was here, I think, prior to April 28th, 2025. And I don't recall him being so active when the PNM administration was in power. I don't recall seeing him being as involved with the PNM as he seems to be very comfortable doing with this UNC administration. In fact, I reference an article from last year, a Newsday article from the now defunct Newsday newspaper, and it reads, Indian High Commissioner, UNC's election victory was like Diwali, dated Sunday the 12th of October 2025. And he says, Indian High Commissioner of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Pradeep Rajpurohit, has compared the UNC's victory in the April 28th general election to Diwali. He made the comparison when he addressed Diwali celebrations at Prime Minister Kamla Persad Bissessa's Separia constituency office in Pinal on October 11th. The event was held under Persad Bissessa's patronage in collaboration with the Separia Women's Association. Rajpurohit recalled previous occasions when he complimented Diwali celebrations in TNT. Says, I'm in love with all of these festivities. He gushed. He told the audience, which included Persad Bissessa, several government ministers and members of the diplomatic corps, that this year, 2025, TNT arguably has two Diwali celebrations. The official Diwali celebration is on October 20th, but Rajpurohit said there was another Diwali celebration before that. The first one was in April this year. They're quoting him here, right? When you all would have voted for the new government under the leadership of the Honorable Kamla Persad Bissessa Ji, he said. The top Indian diplomat said this was again a decisive moment ending at 10 years of a decade-long Vanvas. What is that? In Hinduism, Vanvas is a Sanskrit term for living in a forest, which can mean either voluntary spiritual retreat or more commonly referred to as a forced exile. In her subsequent address, Persad Bissessa described her return as Prime Minister and the UNC's return to government in similar terms. For 10 long years in opposition, I too walked that path of exile. Persad Bissessa said when April 28 came 6 months ago, you raised your deers high and called your leader home. This was not my victory, it was yours. So you had two Diwalis, right? So apparently 10 years under the PNM, UNC supporters were in exile. This is a diplomat saying that, right? You all were in exile. But on April 28th, when the UNC won, you all were delivered from your 10-year-long exile. So if you have any doubts as to where his mindset is, I wonder if the Express remembers those words from the Honorable His Excellency, the High Commissioner for India. I wonder if that wasn't mounted out of a molehill. Some reason that they didn't carry that story, I didn't see it there. That wasn't important to them. Bypass that straight. So against that backdrop, and he is basically saying that under the PNM for 10 years, the UNC supporters and perhaps the whole country was in exile. And that you had two Diwalis. Yeah? We were in a state of darkness, and the UNC victory brought light, brought them out into the light. When we juxtapose that against this latest misadventure, it's not a mountain out of a molehill, Express. Okay? Just saying that. It has nothing to do with it anyway. We leave that there. We leave that there for now. I'm sure if the Emancipation Support Committee had decided to have a procession or some sort of rally up in Queen's Park, Savannah on Indian Arrival Day, we would hear a lot about that from the UNC. The hypocritical supporters who see nothing wrong with what was done here would have had plenty to say. So on Friday, Her Excellency the President of the Republic held an event at President's House on Friday evening to commemorate or to mark 50 years of the presidency. As you know, we became a republic in 1976. This year is the 50th anniversary, and to mark 150 years of the President's House, right? 150 years old this year, 50 years of the presidency. And all members of parliament would have received invitations probably about 2 weeks ago or so to attend this event, which was also attended by other specially invited guests, members of the diplomatic corps, and so on. I attended, as did some of my colleagues. And what was noteworthy is that the only person who attended from the government was Philip Alexander. Because he likes to attend everything, every invitation that he gets, he's there. He likes to rub shoulders with the who's who of Trinidad and Tobago, because prior to Prasad Bisesa giving him that blight, he was just a nobody, a non-percenter, counterfeit 1%er, right? A wannabe Syrian, and then he got blight, elevated status. So the absence of members of the government was noted, not just by myself, and the disrespect to the president, right? This was not PNM event. This was something to mark 50 years of the presidency and 150 years of President's House. And I wonder if these folks spared a thought, well, how would it look to members of the diplomatic corps? Forget the locally invited guests, the foreigners who are here, who are accustomed seeing members of the government attend functions, because on the 6th of July, I think it was, the U.S. Embassy held their 4th of July celebrations at the Hyatt. I was invited to that too, but I was out of the country, so I could not attend. But I saw photographs and I saw videos of members of the government. The Prime Minister was there. And of course, once she's there, everybody else had to be there. So they were there in full attendance. And other members of the diplomatic corps, various high commissioners and ambassadors were also at that event. So they would have seen and would have had opportunity to speak to members of the government. So attending this event hosted by the president, none less than the head of state, and to see, save and except for Philip, no other member of the government. How disrespectful is that? They continue to show their absolute contempt for Christine Gamble, right? But no regard for the impression that you are leaving on our foreign dignitaries who are here and who's seeing that. Who probably thought, well, the Prime Minister would be there, or see members of government there. Well, I guess when Philip realized that he didn't get a memo, he didn't stay very long. Because I saw him when he arrived, because I pulled in just after him, and I saw him walking in with his guest, and probably about the event lasted for about 2.5 hours, and maybe about within half an hour, so I looked around the room and he was not there. So probably wondering, well, who am I going to speak to if my colleagues are not here? And again, poor soul had to pull up in a little small car, because the nice big Prado that he bought, the nice white Prado that he couldn't wait to purchase, like many of his colleagues, that he's spending a lot of money for on a monthly basis, poor soul, he can't drive it. Because Colm waiting for him. You see, that is what happens when your mouth writes checks that your bank account can't cash. Right? Yep. So aside from all your legal fees and everybody else who you had to pay, all the other cases that he lost, you owing Colm, you had to pay Colm $750,000. It went all the way, I think, to the Privy Council might have been. Right? He exhausted his appeals, and now he has to pay. And as I understand, him paying and hiding the vehicle, because the minute it hit the road, Colm will take it. Right? And when Colm as he is, Colm sought to use the local term salop. He might take it and drive it. Yeah. The correct pressures, they have no class. Whatever your thoughts are, whatever your feelings are with respect to the president, all right? Time and place for that. Well, you could cuss out all you want as you're accustomed doing, as Annie Roberts is doing doubles and coffee, and whoever else would like to say what kind of thing about her. She's a PNM lackey, she's a PNM stooge, this, that. But understand time and place. All right? Because I think there will be the cocktail reception that follows the Independence Day parade is held under the auspices of Her Excellency. So I wait to see if they will attend that too. Assuming, of course, that we have an Independence Day parade, because anything can happen between now and the 31st of August. Despite the fact that they say, yes, it's on. We take note that the North Stand is still up. Perhaps the latest it has ever been up. We take note that they have moved the Emancipation Village, which would normally be housed where the North Stand is, right? So they push it to the right of the North Stand. So that suggests that is either it's not coming down, or if it is, that they don't have the money right now to take it down. I saw they finally removed the stands, the downtown judging point, the stands that they have up there on Southgate, they finally removed that. So normally those two edifices would be moved at around the same time. But the North Stand is still prominent, still being used. I saw it was used recently for some band launch and some other thing that they had there. So just over a month to go before Independence Day celebrations, I wait to see or if they will make some sort of adjustment and try to squeeze the parade in between the grandstand and the North Stand. So they might tell the publisher, well, here what? All those of you who normally come to, would gather on the fence line and so on, well, you all could go in the North Stand. They'll come and sit down in the North Stand, and the dignitaries will be in the grandstand, and the folks will parade in between. So I don't see that as being not being a possibility. In fact, that's quite likely what they may do. Because they may say, well, it costs them too much to put up the North Stand and take it down, and Carnival is a short season, so we might as well leave it up. Again, assuming that we have an Independence Day celebration this year. Because anything can happen. You just had to say the wrong thing and PDO in your backside, and then they accuse you of wanting to assassinate some parliamentarian. Now, I take note, nobody wants to assassinate anybody on the opposition side, right? None of us have gotten any threats. I haven't heard it. Nobody threatened me, and none of my colleagues have said that anybody threatened them. So it seems all the threats are directed towards members of the government, which is confusing to me, because if when UNC wins, everybody wins, why would winners want to assassinate members of government? The country was liberated, everybody loved UNC. Winners don't assassinate people. Winners don't attempt or plot, I should say, to blow up half of the Attorney General's office building with a RPG. Winners don't do that. So maybe the government needs to take stock that perhaps there are members of the population who believe that they're not winning. Or maybe you need to redefine for them what winning means, because they seem to have a different idea as to what winning means as opposed to what you all consider winning. Promise made, promise kept, promise delivered. Half of me belongs to you and the other half I give to you. And there have been prime ministers before me and prime ministers after me, but there'll never be a prime minister who loves you as much as I love you. Do as I say. And if you don't like it, shut your mouth. Okay? And if you talk too loud, you could get a PDO. Between now and September the 17th, because when the state of emergency comes to an end on September 17th, the only option they have thereafter is to come back to the parliament to seek a 6-month extension, which requires at least 31 votes, which they don't have and which they will not get, because we sure as hell not supported any 6-month extension to any state of emergency. So they could rock so with that. Don't even fathom the thought. It ain't happening. Right? Not happening. So all they could do is, as they did earlier this year, give you all a 1-month sabbatical. Say, hey, all right, we're giving you freedom for 1 month. Like yourself. Play yourself. Okay? But we're coming back. And then we will start all over again. 3 months with a possible other 3-month extension before we need another 6. And understand all this talk about the state of emergency working my foot. This government is not about dealing with the issue of crime. Because what the state of emergency is not doing is dealing with the underlying causes of criminal activity in this country. It's not. What it has allowed the government to do is to use PDOs to detain the usual suspects, the people who they suspect might be involved in crime, who they know have a criminal record, or who are known to the police. But at this time, there is nothing, the police has nothing to detain the, well, they have nothing they could charge these people with. And even if you charge them with something, once it's a bailable offense, they're allowed to approach the court to apply for bail, and more likely than not, they will get it. Okay, even if they commit murder, thanks to the UNC, you could commit murder in this country and you could get bail. And there are many people out there who are accused of murder and have gotten bail since 2022, thanks to UNC and their operatives. So, but under a PDO, we can keep you for the duration of the SOE. We don't have to charge you. We could just say that you are considered a threat to wider society, and so we keep you for the duration. And during that time, they're trying to run out the clock. Let's see how close to the end of the year we could get, because apparently the SOE is, once you have these folks locked up, they're not outside to kill anybody. We don't know that they killed anybody, because if we did, they would be charged. So we will just detain them. And if they're inside, then they're not outside to commit crimes. They're not outside to plan any criminal activity. Be that as it may, despite the fact that we have about 220 something murders for the year. Can't give you an exact figure because it seems nobody knows. Everybody guessing. Different publications telling you different things, where the analysis is around 220, 221, thereabout. According to the Deputy Commissioner of Police, well, we are at 7 murders less this year than we were last year. That is a tremendous feat. 7 less. Tremendous feat. Yes, let us applaud that. In fact, we need to have a big grand celebration to applaud 7 less murders this year than last year. But he ought to be wary, because in this country, he knows he could say that. And in 2 twos, in one day, based on what we've seen over the last few months, you could have a double and triple murder in one day, as we saw just last week. 3 in Blaventil and 2 in Siparia. So that's 7 murder deficit, Mr. Deputy Commissioner of Police. You know all too well that deficit could be wiped out in a matter of hours, not even one day. You don't need 24 for it to be wiped out. And the rate we're going at, it may very well be that that deficit will be wiped out very soon. Because by now, the criminals have adjusted to the SOE. So whereas before, they were perhaps a little cautious, because the belief was if you're under SOE, you have a heightened police presence and all these different things. We didn't see that. We're not seeing joint patrols. Certainly the Defense Force has not been used. They say they increased the manpower strength of the TTPS, but yesterday I was driving up Queen Street. Queen Street? No. What street was that? Was that Duncan Street? One of those streets. And I saw a few police vans in the back there by Nelson George Street there. And there are some fellas jack up on the wall, hands in the air, and they getting rubbed down. Little petty things. All right? But the focus of this government, as I said before, is really to run down the clock till the end of the year to see if they could contain, once it's under 624, they're happy with that. Once they could see that it's less than the PNM. So when the Prime Minister comes with this nonsensical, asinine argument about, well, UNC is seeing success in the reduction in crime because year to date we had 118 less murders this year than we were at the same period in 2024. My girl bypassed 2025 straight, straight. She didn't come and say, well, with 7 murders less this year than we were last year. No, that figure is not impressive. At least to her. To the Deputy Commissioner of Police, former Acting Commissioner of Police, that is a tremendous feat. That is great. Prime Minister is not of that view. So she decided, let me skip 2025 and go back to 2024. How many was this same period? So we had 118 less? Okay. I want to tell the Prime Minister, you're comparing apples with oranges, madam. Because in 2024, at this time, 2024 did not have a perpetual state of emergency. Okay? We weren't under a state of emergency for 6 out of 7 months in the year in 2024. Perhaps if we were, if Dr. Rowley was inclined to be a dictator and he had done that, which you would have opposed, we know, you and your party would have opposed vehemently. Had he done that, you would not have been able to make that boast because certainly the number of murders most likely would have been less. If he had decided to do what you did and issue almost 500 PDOs to round up the usual suspects, had he done that in 2024, which you would have opposed, the murder figures would also have been less. And you would not have been able to make that silly, foolish comparison. But we know who that is targeted to. The fully done. You could fool them with that. But the rest of us, we know better. Rock so with that. That is what you call desperation. But we expect nothing less from a government that has little to show in terms of by way of accomplishment for the past 15 months. And as I'm on the point of accomplishments, right? I'm speaking as MP for Malabar Mausika, the great constituency of Malabar Mausika. We don't ask for much, you know. Contrary to the Prime Minister's assertion that PNM constituencies have the most of the worst, the most amount of crime, the most amount of unemployment, the worst infrastructure, everything bad in PNM constituencies. But go down in some of these UNs, go down in our own constituency and you will see. But in Malabar Mausika, we don't ask so much. We don't, for the most part, the majority of our roads and so on, our infrastructure, is, you know, ain't too bad. We have a few bad roads that really needs help. One of which is the main thoroughfare called Tumpuna Road, which is in a mess. Under the former MP, Lisa Morris Julian, my predecessor, a plan had been developed to deal with the two main thoroughfares, which was then called Omera Road, which is now called Lisa Morris Julian Boulevard, and Tumpuna Road, right? The MP was given a choice of which one she wanted to do first, and she opted for Omera Road, which for years was just basically one road with two lanes, right? And it was causing a congestion with respect to traffic coming out of Omera Road South, Karapo, vehicles coming from La Hawketta and environs and wanting to traverse onto Omera Road to go into Arima. That used to cause a significant traffic bottleneck and gridlock by that intersection of Omera Road and Churchill Roosevelt Highway. So they needed to expand the road. That expansion was done. They treated with the issue of the traffic that used to be caused, the southbound traffic by where the doubles vendors are, cars after they go and buy the doubles and so on, and seeking to come back onto Omera Road to head out onto the highway and all of these different things, right? So they fixed that. So for the most part, the traffic situation has been alleviated. There are times when you have vehicles coming from La Hawketta and so on that wish again to traverse onto Lisa Morris Julian Boulevard North, but because the light that they have to stop by, that the intersection there, that light changes quickly. Sometimes what you have is those vehicles would come and they try to turn to avoid the light, and they would turn by Food Basket right there, and they cause a little bottleneck there. So Lisa did Omera Road first, and then she was supposed to have done Tumpuna Road. And I understand work did start in Tumpuna Road South on the side with La Hawketta there. This administration came into office and they stopped it, right? But the previous administration was in the process of fixing it. Now, Tumpuna Road is in a damn mess. I am fed up writing letters to Jolene John. Fed up. And every letter I send, I don't even get a response directly from her. You know, she has some secretariat who will acknowledge receipt of the letter, and they will tell me they would pass it on to the minister, or they would forward it to the relevant department, and somebody would reach out to us, and nobody reaches out. So in other words, nothing is being done. The only two PNM constituencies that Jolene John has paid any attention to in the last 15 months was Diego Martin West, that big hole that they had, that sinkhole that they had down in Carana's side there, that was causing a nuisance, and they had to address that. Hands had to shine them up. And in Kareem's constituency, I saw they did some dredging work in the those big drains on the highway by Beetham there. But otherwise to that, nothing has been done in PNM constituencies. We have been abandoned and neglected. Some of the worst roads in my constituency fall under the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. And I've made the point before. The Minister of Rural Development and Local Government lives in my constituency. Some of the worst roads are in her neighborhood. She drives on those roads every day. But of course, when you're driving in Prado, the brand new Prado and Fortuna and so on, I guess she's not feeling the holes, the potholes, because those vehicles have good suspension. But I am getting the complaints. Her neighbors are coming to me on a weekly basis to complain. But the MP living right there on so road, and she's seeing you every day. She and I had a conversation recently in the members' lounge before Parliament went on recess. This is after I had to pull her up on my last contribution in the House. And she says to me, well, she doesn't like to encroach on other people's territory and so on. I said, Miss Lady, you go right ahead and encroach on my territory. Pave the road. You don't need to call me. I don't need to see it. You go right ahead. It falls under your ministry. Fix it. You take all the credit. Tell the people you did it. But once the roads are fixed, I happy. I good. But I am making representation because the roads are in a terrible state and it needs to be fixed. But don't worry. If I shine up they like, shine up they will get. And it coming. I know they listen. All right? So I'm giving you the heads up, an opportunity to address it before we decide. All right? You all like shine up? You all like to get put up? You all like camera thing? That's how we get things done. We have to go and do a video and show the state of the roads. You all say, we will fix it. We will fix it. We'll fix it. If you don't want to, well, okay. We will let the world see what fixing it under the UNC looks like. And I don't want to hear no stupidness about 10 years under the PNM, because it wasn't like that when the PNM demitted office last day. Yes, you had one or two little potholes, but it certainly wasn't as bad as it is now. You all said you will fix it. You all in charge. For 10 years, all you're complaining, oh, the road's bad, the road bad, your suspension, your this, that, you had to be spending a certain money fixing your car, and the roads, we had the worst roads in the whole of the Caribbean. They were complaining about that. How many roads have they paved since they've come into office? All they're getting is patch, no pave. And the supporters who were complaining all the time for 10 years, they had no problem with that. We taking patch. They're good. As I said before, they have developed the patience of Job with this government. Things that they would never tolerate for not even a single day under the PNM. All of a sudden, they have excuses for everything, for the failures of this government, their party. All the things that they wanted the last administration to do, right? 500 million US withdrawn from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Nobody knew about it. Nobody knows when it happened, but it happened, right? 3.5 billion TT dollars withdrawn. Not a word. All you're hearing in the UNC camp is crickets. But if the PNM had done that, oh, they raided the HSF and they raided the HSF. 10 years they complained about that. Don't take no money from the HSF. Don't borrow no money. But Tangu went and borrow 1 billion US at 6.5%. And then he borrowed 800,000 US at 6.2%. And they applaud that. It oversubscribed by 2.5 times. But Imbut borrowed $1 billion US at 4.5%. 2% less. So it was cheaper. We're paying less interest on that loan. Right? And that they complain, borrowing and increasing the debt to GDP ratio and increasing the amount of debt that our children and grandchildren will have to pay. But now your government, every Monday morning, they're borrowing money. As Mr. Imbut would have told us, you know how many lending agencies, international lending agencies used to come to the PNM in the 10 years that they were in office offering loans and loans and loans. And I say, thanks, but no thanks. We good. We struggling. We need it. But when we look at the amount of interest that we will have to pay, that money would better serve the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to do things rather than having to spend all of this money. One, find the US to pay it because these loans have to be prepaid in US, and we're struggling for US. And the amount of money when we look at the amount we'll have to pay in debt service, thanks, we will fight up. And when Dr. Rolly asked, well, please hold strain. You have to tighten your belt for a little bit. Just for a little bit. Until 2027. When we expect Dragon Gas to come and the other things, and once the money start rolling in, right, then you could loosen it and like yourself. Listen, that's too far. How much more will we tighten the belt? We tighten it anymore, we get choked. We'll hang ourselves. That was the complaint. Today, they don't mind. Don't mind. How many of them lost their jobs, but they keep in faith with Kamala? How many of them didn't vote because they vexed with Rowley for whatever reason? Rowley this and Stuart Chung that. They want 10%. Yeah, Kamala said we should give me 10%. Rowley too wicked. Rowley take 47% for himself and he only offered me 4. He's a wicked man. I go in, you see that I recall campaigning and walking in Malabar and went by this household. Young lady came out. She said, listen, this is a PNM, you know. She said, but you see that 10% that Andy Cam's offering? I feel like I could dip my finger for the yellow. She said, let me tell you something. I think this year, yellow is the code. I said, but what do you want to do that for? She says 10%. And the Prime Minister take 47. Don't mind, it wasn't 47. It was 28. Kamala gets 72% increase. They never talk about that. That wasn't thing to talk about. But Rowley get 47, Rowley get 40. But you know, under the UNC less is more. So 47 was more than 72. Yeah? She like herself. And the back pay that she gets on that last year came in June. Give herself 100% cash back pay. But he didn't talk about that. But Rowley greedy. He's a greedy old man. In fact, that's what Kamala Prasad says, referred to him as a greedy old man. And then she come and tell you, well, I know there's nothing we could do. No, we can't reverse it. That was the decision of the Salaries Review Commission, and it is final. But they like it themselves. Over $100,000 a month each. Largest cabinet in the country's history. But meanwhile, you take Chin up 10%. Yeah, you went and vote for them. They end up in office. You get 10%? Yeah, 10%. But now you end up at 0% because you're out of a job. They made your department redundant. So you have a 3-year contract and telling yourself, yes, man, I looking forward to that back pay. Salt. 60-40. And they come and hand you up, what they call it, a pink slip. Well, it was nice, you know. Yeah, but that's it. End of your contract. So long. So you're hoping to get 10 and you get 0. No salary coming now. And 60-40 is still in the balance because CPO and PSA is still trying to argue with each other as to what is going to be. And meanwhile, tax schools say 60-40 it is, take it or leave it, that's all your business. If your landlord increase your rent, move. If your bank increase their fees, go to a different bank or go to the credit union. That's not my problem. I got 99 problems. 10% ain't one of them. Back pay ain't one of them because he got his back pay already. Sit down in the bank somewhere. Every time you go and you pull up online banking and you can look at his balance. Looking good, eh? Meanwhile, who go in Japan and who go in here, there, and everywhere. And you see in pictures who ride in scooter. And the closest you could come to Japan is National Geographic. Do you vote for that? You didn't realize that when we were telling earlier, this is what the situation is. Bear with us for a little bit. You didn't like Rowley. Rowley said, look, I gone. I give all your Stuart. Stuart new, fresh. Give him a chance. No, we ain't want that. We want 10%. Well, all right. Nothing wrong with that, sir. We get 10%. And I think Dr. Rowley told you all that. He said, you could get a pay raise, but you could lose your job in the process. Yeah, you hear what Rowley said? The other day, Felicia reminded you all of that when they had their Labor Day march. Yeah, she reminded you all of that. You all remember when they tell Oli you could get 10%, but it will cost you a job? You think she care about all those of you who've lost their job? I have numerous WhatsApp messages and emails from persons who were working in the ministries, in the government service, in the public service for years. Yes, they were on contract, but they had that stability. Today, they're out of jobs. They don't know what to do. Mortgage to pay. So the little savings that the little kakada who had to go and surrender their deferred annuity. They were saving for their retirement to top up whatever they get from NIS, because remember, soon it's going to be $2,500 a month and not $3,000 unless you want to wait till age 65 to get $3,000 a month. So all who say, let me put aside a little something to top up. By the time I reach 65, it will be $2,500 a month. By the time I reach 60, it will be $2,500 a month. And I'm not prepared to wait till 65. Have to run to the insurance companies now to surrender their annuity. Why? because they have bills to pay, they have loans to pay, their mortgage to pay, and having surrendered their annuity, they had to pay 25% tax on their accumulation. And then file to get back whatever portion, file the income tax return. And as you know, right now, tax square no money, so forget that. There's going to be a while before you could get back that money. But desperation. But under the PNM, you were getting your salary on time. CPAP workers, every fortnight, you pay in the bank now, and pops, you work 6 fortnights, you get paid for 3. And they're telling you, hold strain, tighten your belt, hold on, money coming. But the person who's telling you that today is what? The 26th? She getting paid on Wednesday. By Wednesday afternoon, her ministerial salary will be in her account, and her parliamentary salary as representative MP for St. Augustine will also be in her account. So money come in and meet money. Meanwhile, your account in minus. The bank pull their service fee, and then they charge you $34.50 for overdrawing your account because you didn't leave enough money in the account to cover the service fee. That is your lot. PNM didn't do that. PNM didn't do that. Right? But I'm just saying that. Is your life better today? Well, I know the trolls. I'm not even going to look at the comments right now because I know the trolls are there. They send them out. Poor souls, they're tripping over themselves. They know what to do, how to defend this situation with Dominic and Genevieve Hadid. They know what to do. How to defend that rubbish. So, what did their beloved government do? They realized, because this is a government that governs based on social media, right? They're reading the comments, they're listening to rambles, they're reading UNC Cabal, getting all the information. So they worried. They know they're not popular anymore. In 15 months, population ready for them to go. Well, save and except for the UNC cult. Some of them coming around. Some of them saying they vote for the UNC, they're lifelong UNC, but they ain't voting again. They ain't saying they're voting for the PNM, they say they don't vote. They ain't voting again. Okay. So maybe yet there is not the whole cult is fully done. But anyway, so they leak this recording purposely. I am convinced. They can't fool me. Can't tell me otherwise. Because they realized in reading all of the comments on social media that a lot of their UNC supporters and followers were starting to come around and side with Mr. and Mrs. Hadid. Because on the face of it, people saying, but look how long is a whole month the people and them lock up and no charges. If it is you say you had evidence that they did something, you see the same way all charge Kaya Sealy, call us all have evidence. How come all can't charge Dominic and Genevieve and Star? And they are accused of well, you know. So people started to say, but wait now. It seems they have more in the mortar and the pestle because now we're hearing about land and issues with where Blue Waters is in Orange Grove and some bacchanal with lease and all of that, and the government rescind the lease or some kind of nonsense. So people are saying, side eye, kuyam out, question mark. This ain't looking too right. And then we're reading about the situation, Mr. Hadid's health situation. They have a young family, young kids, a whole month they didn't see their parents, the trauma that is probably these children going through. And then you have those who jump in the bandwagon and say, but what are the other people and what were the others who can't afford? What about them? Well, ask your government about that because it's your government holding these people without charge. Your government detain them. They don't have the money to hire high-priced lawyers like Mr. and Mrs. Hadid can to take the state to task, go toe-to-toe with them. They don't have that money. So you know what they have to do? Sit down inside until September 17th. So they put out this, realizing that they're losing ground, and in an attempt to peg back the support from the supporters who were kind of vacillating, you know. Say, well, we know, when in doubt, use the race card. So leak somebody who had access to this recording that is supposed to be so secret because it's only certain people. The only people who should have had access to that recording would be those who did the recording, which I imagine would be the SIA. Because there's only certain entities are allowed to tap phones. The only person who could give authorization to tap a phone, if I recall, when Gary Griffith said that there was some memo he received where they were supposed to tap his phone and his wife's phone and so on. The only persons who could give that authority is the Commissioner of Police and I think the head of the SSA or something like that. Just two persons or so. All right? And if that is the information that the state is using to make its case of a plot to assassinate the Prime Minister and other members of government, how the hell did that find its way in the possession of the Sunshine newspaper run by Jack Warner? How? Heads should be rolling by now. In any other jurisdiction, the heads of the agencies, the only agencies that's supposed to have those recordings, would have been fired, sent on administrative leave, or would have resigned. 1 out of the 3. To date, the head of the TTPS is still there. As far as I know, the head of the SIA is still there. Right? Nobody resigned, nobody fired, nobody sent on administrative leave. No mention of any investigation to find out how that leak took place. But we know. They ain't fooling me. The government was in desperation mode. And they needed to peg back the support that they were losing among their own supporters. So put it out there and let our supporters hear, the UNC supporters, hear how Star referring to their queen, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, as a term that Prasad Bisesa used to describe herself in the parliament. She said she's a little coolie girl. She said that. So Star was just repeating what she heard the Prime Minister say. The Prime Minister described herself as that. How could you fault Star for using a word? She said that she's that. Were you vexed with Star for you using that word? And all of these people, UNC supporters, jump out and say, oh, boycott KFC and boycott Blue Waters and boycott this and boycott that. You all didn't want to boycott Ramsaran. You all were silent then. When Ramsaran and whoever was calling PNM supporters of African descent, cockroach, monkey, all of these things, ape, that was okay. No, you all stood in solidarity with them. No, why are you blaming the business? It's not the business. She is just the daughter. So why does the business have to suffer and pay because of what she said? That was the UNC argument. But today, Star does not own Blue Waters. Her niece is married to the owner of Blue Waters. Star doesn't have any shares in Blue Waters as far as we know, but they want to boycott Blue Waters. And this fool, this counterfeit 1%er, this non-percenter Philip Alexander, calling for Massey to remove Blue Waters from their shelves. Well, let him go ahead and continue with his folly. Continue to tarnish and damage the people's brand. You just give them more ground to sue for even more money. Loss of earnings. Right? You tarnish the brand, you're costing them money, more money for them to take from the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So continue. You run your mouth, Philip. Like you forget when Kamala told you, stay in your lane, bat in your crease, stay in your zone, leave it alone. You don't know about that. Everything, you are chief cook and bottle washer when it comes to government mouthpiece. And everybody, you have a comment to make it everybody business, everybody ministry except your own. But anyway, so they put that out there. And true to form, all who were sympathizing with the Hadids and Star, all of a sudden the focus is on Star is a racist. We always know the 1% was a racist. We always know they didn't like black people. And we always know this and we always know that. So that's where it twists now. So it's all about race. And race. Yeah, lock up she's so and so. She too racist. Why? Because she said something against your queen, your Maharani, your leader, Olivex, because she said that. Let me get it here. For the benefit of the... Yes. Let's see if I have it here. Let's not do this. It's not. 1 second. You know they like to play smart with foolishness. Remind them.
Mentioned they were shame. You could imagine me. This little coolie girl from down wherever. Mentioned they were shame. You could imagine me. This little coolie girl from down wherever.
They were ashamed. Imagine me, this little coolie girl from down wherever. There are no problem with that. No problem, nothing wrong with that. But Star said it. She used that term, and this was before Kamala, and she said it after Kamala said this. Yeah. All of a sudden, Star needs to be hanged and quartered, tar and feathered for saying that. I am certain that during the 10 years the PNM was in office, you would have had members of the East Indian business community who would have used the N word with gay abandon to describe Dr. Rowley, among other terms. Right? So they ain't fooling anybody. It's just that we don't have a recording of it. But anybody who says, no, I'm sure they never did that, you're a damn liar. Because they call Dr. Rowley rapist, he's a pedophile, he's an Oreo, what they call him, boy, Bobby Head, Kunumunu, all kind of thing they call him. So you feel they didn't refer to him as that? You think they didn't? Miss me with that. There's no problem with that. Yeah, Rowley is that. You could call Rowley that. You had this one massive go sign sing a song, Rowley Mother Count. You all remember that? Dress up in blackface. Rowley, what's the other one he sang by? Everybody heard the other one was. They had names of Dr. Rowley's face on human feces, dog feces. Ultimate disrespect. I played the clip for you all the other day with Stefan Reese, who is now on 91.1, referring to Dr. Rowley in some of the most derogatory terms. So you feel they never called Dr. Rowley that, but that's okay. But just don't disrespect Kamala. No, because they will go to war with you, and they'll go to war with you, and they will go to war with you. Don't disrespect the leader. You could disrespect everybody else. You could come and talk about how Dr. Rowley have a red couch. When he was prime minister in the prime minister's residence, you had a red couch. You had to walk down the corridor and go down 2 steps, and you pass two dog and a parrot, and you will see the red couch and who he had skin up on the red couch and who slept with him to get ministerial position. All these things, the worst of the worst. Every day, this clown, this bald-headed fool, right? This rumcock, talking that talk, and they applauding it and sharing that foolishness 4 and 5 and 600 times. It's okay. I'm always talking about red couch. But they in office now 15 months. Dr. Rowley didn't take anything. Where the red couch? 15 months now, we can't see a picture or video of the so-called red couch in the prime minister's residence when Dr. Rowley used to have all them women. Dog liar. You can't get a picture of the red couch yet? Nobody? I'm surprised. If it existed at all, where is it? The only person who knows about this red couch is this man. And anything he says, the cult runs with it. No problem. So, the infamous recording. What did we learn from that recording? Well, I'm hearing that it's supposed to be a second part. I've only heard the first part. But clearly that backfired on this government too. Well, this whole plot backfired on them, right? Because we know in first instance, it was intended for them to show their supporters and perhaps the wider country that, look, we're going after the Syrian Lebanese community for years. And when the PNM in power, they feel they're untouchable, but we will show you that they're not untouchable and we're going after them. We're going after the big fish. Or it backfired on you. It seems you went after the wrong big fish. Yeah. And even the leak backfired on them as well. Because now everybody holding up Star Sabga as a hero. She's a star. What she said is what the majority of the population thinking. I say, just that you don't have a recording with them saying it. So what would have led to this recording? What would have caused the state to tap the phones of, well, I assume, Genevieve Hadid? I don't know if Star Sabga's phone was tapped as well. But based on the conversation, what we've heard, it appears that Dominic Hadid is among the 20 persons, members of the Syrian Lebanese community, who we had heard about earlier this year, whose visas were revoked. Again, I go based on what I heard, right? Mrs. Hadid was saying that of the 20, Dominic is the only one who spoke out. And I suppose when he raised the issue of VAT refunds and all of these different things, and he was critical of the government. So based on that, we learned that he appears to be one. His wife also went on to say the reason that they gave for revoking his visa was because of he didn't have enough ties. So I'm sure there are many of you listening who have had that experience. You went to the US Embassy to get a visa and they told you, well, they don't have enough ties, so you don't qualify for a visa at this time. And so that was the reason given. And she then went on to say that, well, at least they didn't say it was drugs or guns or anything like that. And they wouldn't say that because they know it's not true and that Dominic would sue. So they said he doesn't have enough ties, which doesn't make much sense to me because, I mean, the man has a multi-million-dollar business in Trinidad. I'm sure he has other properties. I'm sure he has investments in other businesses. He has a multi-million-dollar home that he lives in on the water, right? I'm sure he has other properties like that as well. I'm sure he has significant asset holdings in Trinidad and Tobago. He was actively seeking to finalize the arrangement with regard to the lease on Orange Grove lands there where his business is located. So if anybody has ties, I would think it's him. But who am I to question? If that's what they say. There's people with lesser ties than him getting visa. But okay. So it seems he's one of the 20. So if the other 19 didn't know that their phones were tapped before, I guess they don't know, because we could assume the reason why Mr. Hadid's phone were tapped was because his visa was revoked, and whatever reason that was perhaps given to the government, and they decided to put them on a watch list, and so they're under surveillance. So I guess the other 19 persons know now that their phones are also tapped. So how they go from here is anybody's guess. But I am confused as to this whole thing about a plot a plot or conspiracy. How Dominic gets into that? And again, I only heard the first, one recording, right? And Mr. Hadid was not on that call. So how he get roped in, I don't know. I didn't hear anything in there. The only time I heard the man's name mentioned in that conversation was with respect to the visa, with respect to the reason he was given for the revocation of the visa, the fact that he spoke out of the 20 persons whose visas were revoked, he spoke out. Otherwise, and on at least 2 occasions in the conversation, I heard Mrs. Hadid telling her aunt, leave it in the hands of God. In fact, that's how the conversation ended when Miss Sabga told her niece, go to the gym. Genevieve says, let me go to the gym. She said, today's what, Tuesday? Let me check and see if I have gym today or whatever, right? And she told her aunt, leave it in the hands of God. So I don't see how if you're telling her to leave it in the hands of God suggests that you intend to take it into your own hands. When you say leave it in the hands of God, and she told her that on at least 2 occasions, which suggests to me, then leave it alone, it is what it is. Let them do whatever it is that they had to do. If they want to come after us, because I also heard her say that our time is over, right? And they're coming after us because they know we support the PNM. And I suppose the leak of that recording was also for UNC supporters to hear Mrs. Hadid say that they support the PNM. That's all they wanted to hear. Right? They're supporting the UNC, she's supporting the PNM. So they heard that. They heard the derogatory term used to describe the leader, to rile them up. That was the purpose of that. But for those who don't support the UNC, as I said, Star is now a star, but she's still detained. But the same alleged plot that you released the other 2, but she's still detained. Why? I don't know. Because if you're saying the other 2, we don't have nothing on them, what do you have on Star? But permit me to read again for the benefit of the fully duns who are saying based on that recording, yes, well, you see, that's all that, look, the proof there, and look, and hear what she says. She mentioned something about the only way this could come down or something. So is a bullet in the head of some member of parliament. Didn't identify the prime minister, the AG, nobody, just say, you know. But as I was saying, for the benefit of the fully dons, who are convinced, well, yeah, based on what we said, yes, lock she up, lock them up, you see, they really have a plot. Plot my foot. The appeal court, the high court, both would have either heard that same recording before you all did, or they would have read the transcripts of what was said in those recordings. And what was the court's assessment? The appellate court, led by the Honorable Chief Justice Ronnie Boodoo Singh, appointed by this UNC government hastily. Let us not forget the circumstances under which he was appointed, all right? Not saying that he is biased or anything like that, but I'm just reminding the fully dons that Mr. Boodoo Singh was the choice of your government. And here's what he had to say, or the panel of which he was a member and which he led, both panels. Civil Appeal number P263 of 2026, claim number CV 2026-02618. The PDOs alleged an ongoing conspiracy to assassinate government officials, but the court, whose only their opinion matters, okay, not that of the bush lawyers who come from the fully dons. The court considered that the stated material did not, and they have it in bold, sufficiently identify the alleged plan or conspiracy. So the conspiracy that you all claim this recording substantiates, the court said, you're talking garbage. The involvement of persons other than the detainees and a relative, it does not sufficiently identify any preparatory steps taken to implement the alleged plan, or how the alleged statements, and this is the part, how the alleged statement, it does not sufficiently identify how the alleged statements move beyond offensive or vehement speech into an actual conspiracy. So the court is saying, you see all the things that say about Kuli, whatever, and all those things. I know she's talking about the only way this could come down is if it is, well, if somebody, a member of the parliament is shot or something like that. The court says, has described that as offensive or vehement speech, not a conspiracy, not any plot. So if you all know differently, and you all think that you are more learned than the Chief Justice and the other 5 justices, because, yeah, 2 by 2. Well, the other 4. If you all think you know better than them, well, okay, go ahead. But until then, until you could produce a legal certificate that you are LLB or whatever else it is, all the other legal qualifications, something to show that you went to Hugh Goulding Law School or some other law school, and that you have been admitted to the bar of Trinidad until you go to practice, your opinion doesn't matter. Okay? The court held that the vague reliance on intelligence without explaining how it supported an ongoing conspiracy or developing plan arguably failed to satisfy the statutory preconditions for preventative detention. That's what the court said. So the court heard the same thing you all heard. They read the same thing you all read, same transcripts of what Star said, what Genevieve said, and they said, go for me with it. Where is the plot? Where is the conspiracy? This just seems to be a woman, 2 women talking, and one of them is extremely upset, extremely animated over the fact that the Attorney General appeared to attack the community to which they belong, right? She sees it as a personal attack, that they're coming after her community, accusing them of all manner of wrongdoing that they are not guilty of. They're not involved in any drugs. They're not involved in any drug running. They're not involved in any gun running. That is basically what she's saying. And she don't know. She's upset that you are targeting them, seemingly because of their success, seemingly because they are deemed to support the PNM. And she took offense to it, and she said some things in the heat of the moment. Just like Olive Jack, who they locked up in November last year, who went on TikTok and said some things and called on Mr. Maduro, showed a picture of Kamala's Pink Palace and called on Mr. Maduro if they come to bomb up Trinidad, to blow up there and so on and all of that. And then she ended up PDO between November until the state of emergency came to an end in January. Same thing. Offensive or vehement speech. No plot. Did Olive Jack plot with Maduro? Did she plot with Delcy? They let her go. And that is that. So anybody who listened to that clip and talking nonsense about the see and look evidence and look proof and all was doubting the Prime Minister, and you need to get a checkup from the neck up. Okay? Something wrong with you. But let us go to what transpired last week. Let me get this here. So first of all, we know that the state brought in 2 King's Counsel. One, Mr. Strang, and the other one, Mr. Edie. The state retained 2 eminent King's Counsels to bolster its legal team in the matter involving businessman Dominic Hadid and his wife Genevieve Hadid. This is July 1st. Legal notices number 492 and 493 published in the Gazette on June 30th formally authorized Sir James Raymond Edie, King's Counsel, and Robert Stephen Strang, King's Counsel, to be admitted to practice law in Trinidad and Tobago, specifically for the matter CV 2026-02618, Dominic Hadid and Genevieve Hadid versus the Commissioner of Police. The appointments were made by the Attorney General John Jeremy under Section 15A of the Legal Profession Act following consultation with the Chief Justice. It says here, Sir James Edie, a barrister of the Honourable Society of the Middle Temple, was admitted to practice at the Bar of England and Wales in July of 1984. Strang, also of the Middle Temple, was admitted to the Bar of England and Wales in November of 2003. The legal notices state that both King's Counsel are eligible to be admitted to practice law as attorneys in Trinidad and Tobago in relation to the following cause and any matters, suits, and or other proceedings arising out of or in connection with the cause. So in doing my little research, I also saw that Mr. Strang was lead counsel as well on the matter involving Jack Warner. Yeah, that concluded just the other day for permanent stay of extradition. Yes. So it seems Mr. Strang is the new Vincent Nelson. Right? And the last, in this UNC's last go round in government, Vincent Nelson seemed to be the Queen's Counsel of choice. This go round, it appears to be Mr. Strang. All right. So I decided to do a little search. I want to know, well, the question everybody asking is, in light of the fact of what has taken place, what is it going to cost taxpayers? Aside from the lawsuit that we expect to come from the Hadids when this whole misadventure is over, how much is it going to cost? Because Mr. Strang and Mr. Edie didn't come here for free. They didn't come here for sun, sea, and sand. All right, they came here to do a work and to get paid. And I asked the question, what is Robert Strang, King's Counsel hourly fee? Answer, the precise personal hourly rate for UK barrister Robert Strang KC is not publicly disclosed on his official chamber's profile, as barristers generally quote fees on a case-by-case basis depending on complexity. However, public records and media reports surrounding his state appointments provide clear benchmarks for his fees. Key fee benchmarks. State retainer rates. In July 2026, Robert Strang, KC, and Sir James Edie were retained by the Trinidad and Tobago state for high-profile litigation. Local political and media watchdogs reported that the top-tier British counsels drafted for these matters command an hourly rate upwards of £1,500 sterling, not TT. 1,500 beautiful pounds per hour. Multiply that by 10. 15,000 TT dollars an hour. They've been here since what, the 1st of July or before? Today is the 26th. And as we were told by the Honorable Minister of Homeland Security, this matter is ongoing. So with his revocation of the PDO, Mr. Strang and Mr. Edie, their job isn't finished. They're lead counsel. So let me repeat that for the benefit of the fully duns. Top-tier King's Counsels drafted for these matters command hourly rates upwards, up. So the base, the minimum is £1,500 per hour or 15,000 TT dollars per hour. How much CPF workers you gotta pay with that? You know how much public servants back pay could pay with that? You see, when the PNM was in power and they spend money, UNC supporters could have tell you everything that money could have been spent on. They could have built school and they could have paved roads and they could have paid public servants back pay and all of that. They could have tell you. But minimum baseline 1,500 upwards, so it could be more than that, but nothing less than 15,000 TT dollars an hour. And how many hours did these men commit since they've been here? The 1st of July. So we wait to see. We know we're going to run into the millions. So it's millions to pay these attorneys for a misadventure, fail, flop, and then when Mr. and Mrs. Hadid are ready to sue, and then when Ms. Sabga is ready to sue, that's more millions. But never mind, because they'll tell you she's a racist. So she deserves to be locked up. Okay. Right. But that's okay. When the UNC is in power, no amount is too much to prosecute matters, and Q Vincent Nelson. No wonder why. Millions, 10 million. By how much million and how much million? I wonder who made the decision to select him. Mr. Strang and Mr. Edie. Who made that choice? And of course, Mr. Ramdeen, who was caught up in that whole situation with Mr. Ram Logan and Mr. Nelson, where it was reported. I might touch on that one of these good days again. Sometimes it's good to do a little back in time. Where Mr. Nelson would have reported that the conspiracy was, or the procedure was, he would get briefs and then he would pay a kickback. He would transfer it from his London account to a bank account held by one Gerald Ramdeen in Scotiabank. All right. And then Mr. Ramdeen is alleged that he would withdraw the money from the Scotia account and give it to Mr. Ram Logan in cash. Okay? You would have read in that article as well claims of Mr. Ram Logan renovating his home after spending a ton of money to do an extension. He didn't like how it looked and he tell them break it down and do it over and all of that. Because money run it, you're going to do all this cash it had to spend. So it is alleged in the article. I take note that neither Mr. Ram Logan nor Mr. Ramdeen ever sued the newspaper that reported that story, ever sued the state for malicious prosecution, took any action whatsoever after the DPP took a decision to discontinue the matter and to drop the charges against them until such time as Mr. Nelson decided to cooperate and give evidence in person. Right? Since then, it's been more than 2 years. Papers ain't get sued. Government ain't get sued. Nobody got sued. But the Foley Dance was telling you, by the amount of money them boys going and get, the amount of money Ram Logan and Ramdeen going to sue for, they should make Rowley and them pay for that, and Farish should pay for that. 2 years later, them is good lawyers. No lawsuit. Their reputations were damaged. No lawsuit. But Vincent Nelson lied. And Vincent lied. Okay. And when you ask the Foley Duns to explain that, what did I tell you? HYMC. That's all they could do. HYMC. Poor souls. All right, let me get this here. Right. So, not last week, week before, when money was spending in the courthouse, Express newspaper 4 days ago, it says Hadids must stay in jail. So says the state. 4 days ago. 22nd of July. Hadids must stay in jail. Reject ruling for conditional release of Hadids. 4 days ago. Okay, we go in. The state's attorneys have detailed 3 major grounds before the Privy Council for rejecting the Court of Appeals ruling ordering the conditional release of businessman Dominic Hadid and his wife Genevieve. The state is represented by Sir James Edie, King's Counsel, Tom Richards, King's Counsel, and Gerald Ramdeen. It seems like they leave out Mr. Strang. So that's another counsel. So it's 3 of them. The state's first ground is that the appeal court failed to properly apply the legal principles requiring very great weight to be given to the executive's assessment of what restrictions on liberty are necessary to protect against national security risks. The state is arguing that although the Court of Appeal recognized those principles and accepted the seriousness of the alleged threat, what alleged threat? It failed to apply them when deciding whether the Hadids should remain in prison or be released to conditional house arrest. And according to the state, the executive is institutionally better placed, here they say, to make such assessment because it has access to intelligence, expertise, and other sensitive information which the court may not possess. Now, if you come into the court to convince the court to keep these people in prison on a PDO, not based on charges, not based on evidence, not based on anything else, just intelligence, you would want to think you would provide the court with all the evidence that you have to convince the court, listen, these people are really a threat. You see, this thing is real. And no hearsay, this is no folly. This is real. These people were plotting to take out the prime minister and to take out other members of the government. They failed to do so. And in their failure to do so, court say, what I read for you all just now, well, you all haven't been able to satisfy this court that, that what was said by Ms. Sabga was anything more than vehement and offensive language. You have failed to provide us with any concrete evidence to support your claim that there was a plot, a conspiracy to carry out what it is you all accuse these people of. And in those circumstances, we are saying release them on house arrest. But Mr. Ramdeen argued vehemently, we ain't supporting that. So he says here the state has access to sensitive information which the court may not possess, but yet still sensitive information found its way in the hands of the Sunshine newspaper. How? It's not like that information, that recording was accessible by the whole of the TTPS or the whole of the SSA. So it should be very easy to narrow down who had access to it and who are the likely candidates to have leaked. It goes on. It is also arguing that national security decisions carry a constitutional dimension because responsibility for them has been placed in the hands of democratically accountable officials. They go on. The state also rejected the suggestion that the absence of criminal charges against the Hadids undermined the minister's assessment. Its attorneys are arguing that preventative detention under the emergency regulations is separate from the criminal justice process. Oh, really? According to the state, listen to this, the minister is not required to prove on a balance of probabilities the allegations which led him to conclude that a person would represent a public safety risk if not detained. So, in other words, Zanda could sign a PDA for anybody, right? And he does not have to provide any proof on the balance of probabilities that the allegations which led him to conclude that a person would present a public safety risk if not detained. So if you went to the grocery and you bounce up Zanda, you bounce him and you give him a bad eye, Zanda is a whole fool by. Remember what he did to Ian? Come. You lock up. Bring the handcuff for me. Bring the handcuff. Zanda goes, that way is it? Come. PDO for you. PDO. Come, lock him up there. PDO. You are approved nothing. He doesn't have to present any proof whatsoever to the tribunal, to the court. He just signed. And you lock up. Neither, they said, is the minister required to establish a realistic prospect of a criminal conviction before issuing a PDO. So unlike what happens when you are accused of a crime and the police will investigate, gather their evidence, they will go to the DPP will review the evidence, and if the DPP is of the unflinching view that he could secure a criminal conviction, then he used to go ahead and charge. We have, based on what you presented me with here, we have enough to be able to mount a credible case to have this person committed. Since Zanda don't need to do that. He doesn't have to show, well, there's a realistic possibility that you could make a jail if and when you are charged. You don't have to just sign. We just feel that you are a nuisance, you are a risk to the public safety. take a cool off, take a 3 months inside. The state said the minister's assessment was based on intelligence and argued that such material may be too sensitive to disclose publicly or to the subject of a PDO because doing so could compromise intelligence sources, ongoing operations, or international intelligence sharing relationships. So last week, they were so concerned about public disclosure of sensitive information, sensitive material. Yesterday, Sunshine, was it yesterday? Yes, published sensitive material. The very recording on which the state is hitching its case that these people plotted, were part of a conspiracy to kill public officials. The main item is now in the public domain. Such sensitive material. It is also stressed that the Court of Appeal was not determining the substantive judicial review claim when it ordered the Hadid's conditional release. Ground 2. The state's second ground is that the Court of Appeal was plainly wrong to find that Hadid's liberty interests could outweigh the effective management of the alleged threat. The attorneys pointed to the Court of Appeal's own recognition of the seriousness of national security concerns. According to the grounds of appeal, the court acknowledged that if the allegations were true, and subsequently substantiated, releasing the Hadids could enable them to continue planning or furthering the alleged conspiracy, resulting in horrendous consequences which would result in irreparable harm. So you plotting to kill state government officials. Your plot is uncovered before it could be carried out. They hold you on a PDO, no evidence, they ain't charge you with nothing. And then they say, okay, we're going to put you under house arrest. And you would be so foolish, so dumb, as to continue to plot and to carry out. So now, you know you're under surveillance. Your phone is capped. You know that now. Police watching your every move. Okay? The man or the men who it is you're supposedly contracting to do this work realize, hey, the jig is up. The police know. I wonder if they know about me, boy. So man frightened, you know what to do. Everybody worried because now the plot has been uncovered. And you decide, yeah, we're going first team, I don't know. Yeah, we're still going through. So when an attempt is made, and I say an attempt is made because as I mentioned last week, the Prime Minister has significant security. The Attorney General has a lot of security. The Minister of National Security Homeland Security has a lot of security, the Minister of Defense. So I don't know how you would carry out that plot. But unless you bring in some expert, so you're going through all of this to spend a certain money to bring in experts from outside to carry out this assassination. You know, if that were to happen, the first suspects the police will have is you. Because you were inside, we had your lockup. As soon as we let you out on house arrest, this thing come and happen. It could only be you. You really going to do that? You have this big successful business, all this money you're making, more money than you could ever spend. You have money for generations. And you decide, well, yeah, what now? We're going to risk it all. I've taken one for the team to go and sit down inside the same prison for the rest of my life. The same prison that I've been sitting in for 2 weeks, 3 weeks that I can't stomach or tolerate, that is a threat to my health. I will go and carry out a plot to end up inside there for the rest of my life. That making any sense? Well, like I tell you, making sense to the fully dons. Making sense to them. Right? So this man is such a threat. We uncover the plot, but we still believe if we let him out on house arrest, we take his phone, we take all electronic devices, all communication devices. We're going to put a police post, a mobile police unit in his yard, and we're going to make sure we have patrols and so on, so nobody can come by way of sea to come and talk to him. So we will ensure we know who he's talking to at all times, and whoever and whatever. We will vet who comes to see them. All of this thing. And yet still. Yeah, so we need to do that. But here the foolishness in that. The argument was, if we give these people house arrest, then they may be able to continue to carry out the plot, as I just read here, right? Continue the conspiracy, continue the plotting, and so on. Because even though we've taken away all the electronic devices, we don't know if they still have some hidden in the house, perhaps, or they ransack the people whole house and look and, but maybe they have some safe somewhere that you don't know about, something under some floorboard. You know, all the conspiracy theories that they put out there. So he said we need to keep him in this prison here because once he's here, we know he can't contact anybody, he can't plot with anybody, right? Because inside here, them things don't happen. So we can't risk sending him home and he finds some way to continue to carry out the plot with whoever it is was supposed to carry the plot. We need to leave him in the maximum security prison in Golden Grove. So that way, no outside contact. Now, here my confusion. We have a group of men who were in the maximum security prison who were accused of the first plot back in July last year. The men who were accused of masterminding the plot to blow up half of the Attorney General office with the RPG and who was planning to assassinate the Prime Minister and who not. The authorities say we need to move them from the maximum security prison because in maximum security prison, they could still make calls, they could still contact outside, they could still continue the plot inside there. So we need to move them from there and send them to Tetron and Stobels Bay. Right? But you're telling me, Hadid, he needs to stay in the same maximum security prison that you say Rajai, Ali, and others couldn't stay in because if they stay there, somehow they will find a way to be able to continue to carry out the plot from inside. So you move them to Stobels and Tetron, but you leave Hadid in the same prison that you see. You couldn't prevent Rajai and them from plotting. But you could prevent Hadid from plotting in that same prison, but you couldn't prevent Rajai and these guys who Tong and Chagrama, so you couldn't prevent them from plotting inside it. Dominic Hadid, who has more resources, money than Rajai and everybody else who they send Tetron and Stowers Bay. Dominic Hadid, who, if look right now, we see how many prison officers lost their work, get charged because they bring in cell phone, they bring in weed, they bring in cigarettes, all kind of thing for prisoners inside there of lesser means, who don't have the kind of money that Dominic Hadid has, who doesn't have the reach that Mr. Hadid has. He have money. You can just tell a prison officer, I need a phone, man. Give $1 million. His company probably making that in a day. How many other prisoners inside there who could convince these prison officers to bring a phone for them could offer them that kind of money? Not saying that Mr. Hadid did that, right? But I am saying that if he wanted to do that, or even if he didn't do it, I'm sure that prisoners inside there could have said, yeah, well, the boss, if you need a phone, we could get a for you, you know. Where you need? Because how often do they get to interact with people of Mr. Hadid's ilk? How often are they going to see someone of his ilk inside there? So they're going to capitalize on the opportunity. Some of them who might not be in there for life. I say, well, let me see if we can make friends with the white boy now. You know, when we come out, we can probably call IMC. Well, the boss, you see, we taking care of you inside here, you know. There's one we know, but I supposed to come out in 2 years and I need a little work. You could link me, I could come and check you and you give me a little something. Okay, no, they don't like to hire ex-convicts now. So I just saying, since you're inside here and we are big business, and then when I come out, I could link you inside here, you know, and when I come out, you handle me. They could do that. So all this thing about if you leave him inside there, he can't plot. But if you send him on house arrest, that he could do that and all this kind of thing and the resources that you will need. Rubbish. It's far easier for him to get through inside that prison. Right? Because as I said before, if prison officers risking their freedom, risking their job, risking their reputation and so on, to bring things in for people of lesser means who don't have the kind of pockets that Dominic Hadid has. You don't think that if a bribe was offered to them that they would take the chance? But this foolish government tried to convince you that it's better there than home. Right. That making sense to them? Okay. And government? Yeah. So people will even have kakada. They could get phone, they could make calls, and they could plot from inside, because that's what they told us. Rajai and them was plotting from inside the prison. They may have the kind of reach and money that Hadid has. But they could do it. But he can't do it. And he have more reach than them. We would have heard from Peter George, who visited his home, Mr. Hadid's home, after he was released. He did a brief interview with the media, and he said they were allowed to visit. Mr. Hadid and his wife were allowed to have visitors. So, you talking to them? You sure you were certain that none of these persons who visited them were also conspirators? Probably because what, you had their phones tapped for a while, so you know who they're talking to and who they weren't talking to. I just ask it. So it goes on. Ground 3. The state's third ground is that the house arrest condition imposed by the Court of Appeal were inadequate to manage the alleged threat and that the conditions were considerably less effective than detention in prison. Among its concerns is the possibility that communication could still take place from the Hadid's home even if communication devices were prohibited. The state also noted that visitors appeared to be contemplated under the conditions, although they would require police permission. Once inside the property, the state is arguing that visitors could communicate freely with the Hadid. So they weren't communicating freely with them when they were coming to visit them in the prison, according to Mr. George. In the same way, if a visitor come, you had to get permission first from the police. And in the same way, if it is that when they were going to visit them in the prison, you had a prison officer standing next to them to hear the conversation. In the same way, if somebody come to visit, you could say, well, okay, this is the room where you will sit, and you have a police officer sit down there and listen to the conversation. In the same way, what's the issue? The attorneys also highlighted the physical characteristics of the property, describing it as a very large seafront property comprising several buildings. They argue that this would create significant practical and resource difficulties for police attempting to effectively enforce the conditions. The state also raised the possibility of absconding, which it said could then provide an opportunity for unrestricted communication. How he absconded? You have a mobile police unit inside the man's yard, on the compound, officers. If you're manning the sea, right? So I imagine the police have their marine unit or whatever, right? So you have somebody. The same way when you have a man in the hospital, you have him handcuffed to a bed, but you still have officers there, sit down outside as the case may be. So where he absconding to? He don't have a US visa. You know that was taken out. So where are you going to? Right? Venezuela? How is the boat going to approach for him to go on the boat? Anybody who has seen Mr. Hadid in person knows that Mr. Hadid has a physical impairment. Right? The way he walks, clearly there's some issue with his leg. So it's not like he could run. So the police, hey, come here. He ain't gonna run too far. All right? So I don't understand. All these concerns that they had, they better, keep him locked up. For what reason? Not because you're concerned. You just want him locked up to prove a point to your supporters, your sycophantic supporters. Hey, we dealing with them. Yeah, that's PNM handlers, that's PNM owners. But us, what we heard Star made mention about Prasad Bisasan coming to ask them for $150,000 or something, so for election campaign. I don't know how true that is. But it goes on to say, it further contends that there was no evidence before the Court of Appeal capable of supporting a finding that conditions imposed were sufficient to mitigate the risks associated with releasing the Hadids, and the attorneys are therefore arguing that the Court of Appeal failed to recognize the reduction in public protection which would result from replacing prison detention with conditional house arrest. Now, let me see this thing. Where is this? Right. The state is also challenging the Court of Appeal's treatment of the Hadid's loss of liberty, arguing that damages could compensate them if their detention is eventually found to have been unlawful. So once they go to the Privy Council in October, and if the Privy Council finds that the PDO was unlawful, it now paves the way for Mr. Hadid and Mrs. Hadid to sue with immediate effect, with due dispatch. The state also questioned the court's consideration of medical issues. Listen to this, saying it did not identify what, if any, medical condition required treatment at the Hadid's home which could not be accommodated in prison. Let me repeat that. The state also questioned the court's consideration of medical issues, saying it did not identify what, if any, medical condition required treatment at the Hadid's home, which could not be accommodated in prison. Mrs. Hadid, in her statement, outlined a long list of medical challenges that her husband has. And she talked about his issue with CPAP, needing to use a CPAP machine when he's sleeping and so on. It affects his breathing ability, and the facility in wherever they carried for him in the prison might be inadequate, and so on. Right? Ramdeen gave the assurance, listen, any medical requirement condition that requires treatment at their home could and would be provided for them, for Mr. Hadid in the prison. Right? So that we're not accepting that as an excuse to provide them with house arrest. Right? The prison could take care of all his medical issues. The state will provide for that. A few days later, Minister, medical report behind decision to release Hadid's. 2 days later, 2 days after Mr. Ramdeen contended, or the state contended in the court, that any medical issues that Mr. Hadid has could be treated within the prison. So we reject that outright as any grounds to allow him house arrest. A medical report on the health of Dominic Hadid, which the state received 2 days ago, played a major part in the release of Dominic Hadid and his wife Genevieve. Minister of Homeland Security Roger Alexander today revoked the prevention detention order issued against the Hadids nearly 1 month after they were detained as part of an ongoing criminal investigation into an alleged plot to assassinate the Prime Minister and senior members of her government. In a statement issued today, the minister said the criminal investigation that led to the PDOs remains active. The minister said the decision to revoke the orders followed a review of the circumstances surrounding the continued detention, including a recommendation from the review tribunal established under Section 11(1) of the Constitution that the continued detention was not necessary or expedient in the public interest. But this is the same Zanda who told us, or it was reported, asked the tribunal to review or reverse their ruling or their determination that Mr. and Mrs. Hadid, that their detention was not necessary or expedient in the public interest. Just a few days ago, we heard some story about the minister wasn't aware that the matter had come before the tribunal and all kind of bacchanal, and they wanted an opportunity to present before. Hogwash. Rubbish. Because any defense attorney would assault if they appeared before this tribunal and they saw that there was no representation from the state, would inquire, where are the state representatives? Where are they? Because they know they don't want to prolong this thing to provide the state with grounds to say, well, we had no representation at the tribunal and we were not aware, and so therefore we are now asking the tribunal to stay its decision so that we could now come and present our case to further frustrate the process. So I am sure Mr. and Mrs. Hadid's attorneys would have said, well, we're going to hear where the minister's representatives, where the state representatives to come and plead their case. Make sure you dot your I's and you cross your T's. Don't give the government or the state any excuse whatsoever to delay this process any further by saying that they didn't know. But that's what we hear. The minister said, well, he wasn't aware of the meeting of the tribunal. Okay. It goes on. The minister said also, a medical report submitted on July 21st regarding Dominic Hadid's condition and required treatment plan was considered as part of the decision-making process. But yet still, Mr. Ramdeen tell the court, we are not satisfied that there's any medical issue that Mr. Hadid has that requires treatment at home that he can't receive in the prison. 2 days earlier. 2 days earlier. He goes on to say, the minister said Hadid was asked to consent to an independent medical examination by a specialist appointed by the state but declined. In the discharge of my constitutional duty as a Minister of Homeland Security, I am required to balance the detainee's right to liberty and the protection of the law with the need to preserve and protect public safety during a public state of emergency. The minister said the investigation has since expanded beyond its original scope and now involves multiple jurisdictions, requiring cooperation among several local and international law enforcement agencies. So they determined just from a phone call between an aunt and her niece, where a woman is expressing, according to the court, vehement and offensive language, that this now goes cross-border and involves other jurisdictions and requires the intervention of international law enforcement agencies. You all remember when Rudal Monilal, in the matter of, and I spoke about this before, when Petrotrin was restructured, they like to say shut down, okay. And he claimed that, his words, the UNC has in its possession information with respect to this AV drilling fake oil matter that it involves 4 governments. We have information that could bring down 4 governments. This was in 2017. 2020 came, they couldn't even bring down 1 government, not even the government of Trinidad and Tobago. So when we read this nonsense about they have information and further, and it requires cooperation from among several local and your local law enforcement couldn't find 1 iota of evidence to charge these people. Not 1 iota. But you expect international law enforcement agencies to find information? How? You all have had these people clearly under surveillance for the longest while. You've had their phones tapped for the longest while. So we know the period that we're looking at. When John Jeremy came to the parliament and made his statement about the 1%, talk about that interview with Anthony Bourdain and the birth of this whole 1% talk. So we're looking from that period come forward. In that period, about a month or thereabout, when? So these people hear John Jeremy say and they were so upset. From this little conversation between a niece and her aunt, in which we hear the niece telling the auntie, let us leave it in the hands of God. So unless God is the name of some international mafia association or some international mafia leader, I fail to see how this could have gone beyond a simple telephone conversation between a 70-year-old woman who is frustrated and upset that the government appears to be targeting the community to which she belongs, to which she feels made a significant economic contribution to Trinidad and Tobago, and is upset when she hears talk about Tetron and the 1%, and then the Attorney General goes to the Senate and talks nonsense about who was getting access to 100,000 and could go abroad. See how petty. Who had credit card and no limit and who could go abroad and spend 100,000 in a weekend and come back and then pay it off. Where they were getting the money to pay it off, Mr. Attorney General? From the bank account where they have the US. Generated legitimately from their business, because the bank wouldn't accept the money unless they were able to demonstrate source of funds. So the fact that they have the money, the bank says is legit money. Okay? Especially, we're not dealing with US, but TT currency here, we're dealing with US currency. So if the people have the money, when they brought it to the bank, however it came in, if it came in through wire transfer, if it came in by check, by cash, or whatever, the bank would ask them to please provide us with proof, some sort of evidence that the source of this funds is legitimate. And once we accept it, we accept what you have provided to us, then we will deposit it to your account. So the only way they could go on a weekend and spend 100,000 on their credit card is if they have 100,000 US sitting down in an account that when they come back, they could pay it. And as you said, so they could they pay it and then they go back again. The reason why the ordinary citizen can't do that is because they don't have hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of US dollars sitting in bank accounts in the local banks. But if you have it and you want it, and the bank says we cannot give it to you in cash, but we could give you another way through your credit card, he goes on to say, I have determined that the balance at the present time, having regard to all of the relevant circumstances, is in favor of release of the detainees. So 4 days ago, they were concerned that if they released Mr. and Mrs. Hadid under house arrest, that they would be able to continue the plot. They would be able to continue to talk to whoever and whatnot. Tall guy, who's the security guard that transports their children. And this other 70-something-year-old gentleman who is the head of some NGO and works with Mrs. Hadid, providing support for the less fortunate in Trinidad and Tobago. Because as the former president of the Syrian Lebanese Women Association, she used to spearhead these fundraising events and so on. And this gentleman, as we've heard, works with her. Has no criminal record, is not known to the police, but all of a sudden this poor man get caught up in this conspiracy. But he was not detained, and Tall Guard weren't detained either. Just Mr. and Mrs. Hadid and Miss Sabka. Just the three of them. So the people, as I said before, who were supposed to actually carry out the plot, the police had no interest in them. That making sense. So as I was saying, last week you were concerned, just 4 days ago you were concerned if we let them go under house arrest, that they could continue the plot. Today, they are at home, no police, no mobile unit in the yard, right? No, they're not under, well, they say the investigation is still ongoing, so they probably still have them under surveillance. Their phones are probably still tapped and on. But all of the concerns that they had in having to provide all these resources, and that they could, I assume they get back their phone, they can have visitors come and go. We saw many visitors going and coming to and fro on the day that they were released. So they could have talked to anybody and continue the plot there, which you were so afraid of 4 days ago. But 4 days later, that threat that existed 4 days ago no longer exists. There's no such concern that communication could take place. So you revoked the PDO. If you were so concerned, then you could have said, well, based on a change in circumstance, we decided that we would allow them. But you realize if you do that, how we go look? You send them home on house arrest, but you have other people still inside. That opens a floodgate. So it's better if you just revoke the PDO, right? And just say, right, pending further investigation. So you're free to go. Free to talk to whoever you want in person. Mr. Hadid is free to jump in his car. Well, I don't think he drives. A few times that I've seen him on the road, he has a driver. So driver come and pick him up and take him up to his business place, take him wherever he wants to go, meet with whoever, pick up whoever, they could chat in the car. I don't think they bug his car. But then again, you never know. So this was a concern 4 days ago. Cost you, the taxpayer, millions of dollars in legal fees. All this that run around and hullabaloo. All of that. Only to revoke the PDO and let the people go home. But let's still have Star lockup. Poor Star, who is 7. Mrs. Hadid is what, 40-something years old? I think she's in her early 40s. Mr. Hadid, I believe that is 51 or 52. Still relatively young. But all they keep poor Star, who's 70 years old. What Star could do at 70 years old? Star don't have access. You all talked about the resources that Mr. Hadid has, all the money he has and the reach that he has. Star don't have that. Even if she has the money at 70 years old, come on. We could do that. You can't do that. What are you doing the woman now? Let the woman go home now. If she was upset with Kamla before, I could tell you. She's very upset now. And at least before, she had the company of her niece in the prison. So she had familiarity. She had somebody. She's close to the same niece so that they could talk and so on. But now she's there by herself. The people who there, she doesn't know them. Some of them probably hardened criminals inside there. But this poor old lady, you know how she probably felt when Genevieve tell her auntie, so they revoked the PDO, so I'm leaving, okay, but but you still staying here. Could you imagine woman probably cry herself to sleep that night? Because where she had her niece before to talk to, who she talking to now? So whoever go and visit her, she had her niece 24 hours a day. Now it's just visitation. If it's an hour, whatever it is, she has somebody to talk to. Do you understand the mental toll that is going to take on this woman? More grounds for lawsuit. So Zanda and them better find some evidence quick to charge this woman. Otherwise, licks for the treasury. But that's okay. for the UNC because they're more concerned about stars are racist. She used that derogatory term that their leader used to describe herself. Star decided to use the same term to describe the very same leader. All of a sudden, it's offensive. But when Kamala said it in the parliament, no, it wasn't offensive. No. That's quite all right. It was appropriately used. She could say whatever the heck she wants. She could come in parliament, and if she wanted to, she could use expletives from now till next week. And it's okay. Because they will find a way to justify that. But to shift the goalposts and talk about, but when this one say, when Stuart Young did say, and when this one say, so it's okay. It was wrong when they said it, but Kamala said it is okay because so and so said it. We wait to see how this is going to unfold. We wait to see. But this is egg on the face of your government, this government, okay? And then the latest we hear now is that the Attorney General wants to sue the tribunal. The tribunal that was established by the Constitution to ensure that when we are under a state of emergency, that persons are not detained unnecessarily through the use of PDOs and so on. That's the purpose of the tribunal. But we now understand, notwithstanding the decision of a tribunal, the minister has the final say, so he could reject the recommendations of the tribunal, as we saw in the case of the Hadids initially. So it was the point that that whole tribunal is just a farce. I just there to say, well, don't worry, there's a safeguard to fool the opposition into supporting the government to say, well, if a state of emergency is declared, if you are concerned that the government could use the provisions of the state of emergency to lock up people unnecessarily, well, we have the tribunal that they could appeal to and they could get off. Now we understand that the minister still has the final say, so he can reject. He doesn't have to accept the decision of the tribunal. What is John Jeremy going to waste more money, more taxpayers' money to sue the tribunal? For what? For what? The tribunal has made the same decision as the court. You can't sue the court. They sue in the court, but you want to sue the tribunal? And this is the same man who came in and complained about legal fees and how much legal fees he met when he came in there, and he going through and deciding what to pay and what not to pay and how much money. But he, in his wisdom, thinks it makes sense to sue the tribunal for making a decision based on what your government presented to them. If it is that there was no representation on the part of the state, as suggested by Alexander, whose fault is that? If we all was slack. Which I don't. But anyway, if that is in fact the case, so we the taxpayers must not pay for your incompetence, your negligence. Well, then when you sue the tribunal, what do you expect to come out of that lawsuit? Who pay any fees of the tribunal? The members of the tribunal themselves? And if that is the case, then how do you constitute a tribunal in the future? Because man will say, you see what happened with that last tribunal and people had to pay out of pocket? I want no part. No, don't ask me. I'm not interested to serve on any tribunal. Not interested. Not interested. And if they don't have to pay out of pocket, then who pays? The state? The taxpayers again? What is the point of that? Who's paying for the attorneys to represent the tribunal? Who? But this is your government working for you. Promise made, promise kept. When UNC wins, lawyers win. Lawyers win. Not you. Where are the usual suspects? Where are you all? To complain about state wastage when it comes to funds. Meanwhile, we continue to ask. The 500 million that was withdrawn from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, what was that used to do? If only don't say asking that, they're not interested to know that. Into the valley of debt rode the UNC regime. The government's latest 800 million sovereign bond may have attracted overwhelming investor demand, but economists are warning that the more important story is the growing cost of borrowing and the long-term burden on the country's finances. Economist Dr. Jamila Harris noted that the cost of debt has been increasing over time. It has gone from 4.5% 10 years ago to 6.5% today. She also questioned the government's use of the borrowed funds. So far, the administration is using the funds to repay loans that have become due and for recurring expenditure. According to Dr. Harris, borrowing should primarily fund investments that generate economic growth because, from an economic perspective, the government borrowing should be used to finance activities that stimulates the economy and allow growth and increase government revenues to repay debt, which is to say that the borrowed funds should not be used to fund current expenditure, such as salaries, which is what these people are doing. Economist Dr. Ronald Ramkissoon expressed concern that external borrowing has to be repaid in foreign currency, US dollars, and therefore we should be doing the kinds of things to earn foreign exchange that we will be able to service these loans. The problem is we are doing neither, hence it will further exacerbate our dwindling foreign exchange problem. From all accounts, the government is taking the country for a ride into the valley of debt, destination the IMF. So says Dr. Ronald Ramkissoon. More than $500 million was withdrawn from the TNT Heritage and Stabilization Fund over just 6 months, and economists say the public deserves a full explanation of where the money went. Not if you're a member of the UNC, then you don't care. You don't want to know. The latest report shows that the government withdrew US $260.78 million between July and September 2025. They came in May. They wasted no time. Back pay had to pay, right, for themselves. 100% cash, not 60-40. Followed by another US $250 million between October and December. But when the PNM withdrew from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund to support COVID initiatives, to pay salary relief grant, income support grant, the rental income assistance, the rental assistance program, and so on, to provide monies to ecclesiastical bodies to be able to assist their parishioners who were struggling, who lost their jobs, to provide hampers and so on. $10 million spent on hampers when they were using that money to buy agricultural products from farmers to be able to provide food boxes for citizens who were struggling. The UNC was complaining, oh, they're raiding the HSF, they're raiding the HSF today. No questions asked. They don't want to know. You know what they want to know? How much money spent on Balize House? Where the money come from to construct Balize House? That's what they're interested in. Not interested in $500 million withdrawn from the HSM. No, they're not interested in that. They want to know about Balize House and want to see deed and want to know where the money came from for Balize House. But don't worry, in due course. But we know that no matter what explanation the PNM gives and what evidence they provide, the fact of the matter is that it will never be satisfactory to the UNC. Never. Okay? So it just don't even make sense trying to talk to all about it. Waste that time. That is approximately US $510.8 million or 3.46 billion TT removed from the country's national savings. Economists Mariano Brown and Dr. Marie Natz are not arguing that every withdrawal is automatically wrong. The HSF exists partly to help support the country when energy revenues fall and the government faces fiscal pressure. But the real question is this: was the money invested in projects that will generate growth, or was it used to pay recurrent bills and existing obligations? ATS argues that using the fund for productive investment could benefit future generations. Using it mainly to finance consumption, however, would mean spending tomorrow's savings without creating anything lasting. Despite the withdrawals, the fund reportedly remained valued at approximately US $6.25 billion at the end of December 2025 and later recovered to around $6.6 billion. Again, thanks to investment income, had nothing to do with the UNC. They have deposited not one penny, not a dime near farthing into this fund since coming into office 15 months ago. And to date, they have deposited nothing. All right? So it's basically because of the prudent management of the fund and based on the investment instruments that the last administration would have sanctioned is why the fund is where it is today. Never forget that it was the UNC between 2010 to 2015 came to the parliament and brought legislation to indemnify the managers of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund so that if they invested your money poorly and lost money, that they could not be sued. The UNC did that. Came with that indemnity legislation to indemnify directors and fund managers if things went south for the fund. So the fund has not been emptied, but a healthy remaining balance does not remove the need for accountability. Citizens should be told why each withdrawal was made, what programs or expenses received the money, and what measurable benefit the country gained in return. This is not government's personal account. It is national wealth accumulated from the country's energy resources and intended to protect both present and future generations. You remember I used to tell you all before? The only reason why the UNC didn't raid the Heritage and Stabilization Fund between 2010 to 2015 was because the law that was in place at that time prevented them from being able to do so. Because there was a clause in the law that stated that in order for them to withdraw, that they had to wait until the end of the fiscal year, and they had the projected revenues, the government's projected revenues, you had to have a shortfall of 10% or more in between projected and actual revenues in order to trigger the conditions for a withdrawal. And so that's why. But when COVID came, the Parliament had to amend the law to allow the government to make withdrawals before the end of the financial year, right? And that basically removed that safeguard that existed before that prevented the People's Partnership from raiding the HSF. Now that the UNC is back in government and that safeguard was removed, it's a free-for-all. They could withdraw when they want. They don't have to come to account to Parliament, because remember, before the laws changed, any withdrawals you had to come and you had to inform the Parliament. They don't have to do that. So that's why they took out the money. People didn't know, and we hear about it after the fact, because the central bank has an obligation to publish the HSF report. I think they do it quarterly or so, and it is in those reports that you will see that money was withdrawn, and that's how we found out. But when the PNM make with, oh, the captain, it's time but just to come and tell the Parliament, let the country know. I say what? Such is life. Meanwhile, we see resignations, a second resignation from the board of TSTT. So the 5-member board is now down to 3. 2 directors who were appointed within the last few months have resigned, one of which is Kyle Maloney, who would have resigned sometime the 1st of July. And this latest resignation, just over a year after a 5-member board of directors was appointed to TSTT, the company's board has been reduced to 3 members following the resignation of Director Nadira Prabhudial. The announcement of Prabhudial's resignation was made today by TSTT's Corporate Secretary Viveka Pargas. Prabhudial was appointed to the board on June 11, 2025, alongside Chairman Kern Dask and directors Randy Ramtahal, Castellina Kelshaw, and Kyle Maloney. Maloney subsequently resigned from the board on July 3rd of this year. Prabhudial's departure leaves TSTT's board comprising only Das and directors Ramtahal and Kelshaw. The reason for the resignations of Maloney and Prabhudial have not been disclosed. In a communication following Prabhudial's resignation, Pargas advised TSTT executives to ensure that only the names of current directors who affixed the letters and official documents requiring the signatures or identification of members of the company's board. So when you have less voices in the boardroom, it's easier to engage in bubble. Just say. But I guess filling those vacancies is not a priority for this government, because I can tell you, they're struggling to get quality people to serve on state boards. Which is why almost 2 years into 15 months, going into the 16th month, they still have a number of board positions that are yet to be filled. So they filled out the tourism board this week gone there, and they have the likes of Orlando Octave and Benny Heatem, of who I believe owns Woodford Cafe, and a couple other persons. Right? So they continue to reward people for bad talking the PNM. Orlando sang a song about Lockjaw for Carnival and stuff, and Calypso do belong to the PNM. And so all you have to do is just sing on the PNM, cost the PNM, and you could get blind. Right? Meanwhile, as the supporters continue to attack the likes of Miss Sabga, sitting on the board of TTT, you have a well-known racist. Social media and radio airwaves racist, Miss Santa Cruz, collecting your taxpayers' money every month in the form of a director fee. But Facebook is replete with screenshots of this woman's racist rants. I remember her very well from my time on 91.9. She used to call in Piper and Biggs, DJ Biggs or MC Biggs program. She always call in back in those days, 2010 to 2015. She was a regular caller on 91.1 when she used to call Marcia Brave Boys program and the Underground Report. Well known, right? No complaint from the UNC supporters about her. She's sitting on a state board, rewarded for her racism, but they call in for boycott. In nonsense. See if I get this here. Then start with their foolishness. So let me get this here. Where is it? Yes. Boycott the racist 1% businesses. Buy Indian only. It's 600,000 of us in TNT and we sell everything that we need. One, Vinda Ramsingh. And she tags Neil Gosain and 17 others. Who is Neil Gosain? The Member of Parliament for Chaguanas West. So she tagging him. Yes. Boycott the racist 1% businesses. Buy Indian only. This is their mindset. This is their thinking. You all remember when Certified Samson opened his second branch of Certified Scoop or something, so at Eastgate, with the assistance of the same 1%. The owner of Eastgate, Mr. Abood, right? Edward Abood, the son of the late George Abood. I think he runs Eastgate Mall. And he encouraged Certified Samson to come and open Certified Scoop there, and he also offered him assistance in terms of, because Certified Samson had just opened, just I think a year or so before, had opened his first branch in South Park. So he said he wasn't as yet in a position to. But the same 1% that they're always talking about that don't like black people, and same Edward Abood encouraged him to come and would have assisted him in opening that second branch. And what did the UNC supporters do? Because Foster Cummins was there, Kareem Marcel was there at the opening, and Kwesi Robinson, three persons who are known to be PNM, along with the whole other group. They come on Facebook, social media, and telling people, boycott. You see, if affiliated with the PNM, boycott. And then these same hypocrites like to talk about how black people can run business and black people don't own business and all they could do is serve as laborers and consumers. But when they make an attempt to do so, because they may be politically aligned, they decide to come on social media to tarnish the boy business and call for boycott simply because you had 3 PNM people at the opening of his Eastgate branch. But I'm sure when he opened in South and it had UNC people there, they had no problem with that. If you associate with, nobody don't call for no boycott. I didn't hear anybody in the PNM calling for any boycott when they see UNC people at the opening of any business. Pararat had big thing last week, Sunday, for football final, World Cup final, B-Mobile down in Brentwood. All the threats yonder. The day in the crowd, you see them liking themselves, taxpayers' money spending to throw big bram and big fat big screen. All you come thing, give away, TSTT spending money. But then, is it NEL, National Enterprises Limited, of which TSTT, I think, have some shares in there or something? You know, the hypocrisy of the UNC. When PNM, to mark the country's, I believe it was our 60th anniversary of independence, the government had something called Independence Dance or something like that, where they had the art collections of 3 entities were housed at 3 of the Magnificent 7 buildings. One was housed at Millefleur, one was housed at Whitehall, and the other one was held at Stallmeyer's Castle Killarney. It was First Citizens Bank, I think Central Bank, and Angostura. Angostura's collection was at Millefleur, Central Bank was at Whitehall, and the third one, FCB I think it was at Stallmeyer's Castle. And when the exhibition was over, right? Angostura, if you all recall, decided that they wanted to have a big event to culminate the closure off of the whole thing for World 3 and so on. And they held an event, time period event at Millefleur, where they would have hired Brian McFarlane to create an event that took you back to 1904 or whatever it is, that time period there when these buildings were in their heyday. And so they had horses and carriage and people dressed in white and all kind of thing and whatnot. And somebody passed there, I don't know if Kamala passed or somebody passed and she went and complained to her. At that time she was opposition leader. And she made a big stink about, oh, the government taking your taxpayers' money to throw big fat. And they had some big event at Millefleur, right? And while people suffering in the country and the oppressed and people can't buy food and can't put food on the table and pay the bills and send the children to school, but the government taking taxpayers' money to hold big lavish events for their friend, family, and financiers. She said that. Dr. Rowley came on and said the government had nothing to do with that. That was something that was held by Angostura, and his presence there because he was invited to be the feature speaker, and that is why he was there. But this had no government involvement. No taxpayers' money was spent. Prasad Bisasa came back to respond to him to say, well, Angostura shares is majority owned by the state because through the CLICO debacle. And so therefore, technically it's taxpayers' money because the profits of Angostura belongs to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And if it is they're taking money to spend on these lavish events, then that is less profits to go to the citizens. So it's really taxpayers' money. She came with that nonsense, not understanding that the Angostura shares that are held by the state as part of NIF. So the state would have already received those monies based on persons who would have invested in that NIF offering. So all profits that flow from those shares until for that 15 to 20 year period, I think it is, belongs to those persons who chose to ignore her nonsense when she said that NIF was a Ponzi scheme and told people don't invest in it. All those who say to hell with her and went and invested their money and have been getting their dividends every 6 months now, right? That money belongs to them. Yes, they are taxpayers, but it belongs to them by virtue of the fact that they bought shares in NIF. So who didn't buy, you're not entitled to. When these people went and invested their money into that NIF so that they could benefit from Angostura shares and others, the lump sum of money that the government got from what the people spent to buy their shares is what went to the taxpayers. Like, she didn't know that. But today, TSTT, she ain't saying that the big brand they had in Brentwood last week and all the money that TSTT has been spending on all manner of things, all of their brand ambassadors that they have for Carnival and who was performing in this FET, Ministry of Public Utilities FET, and they bring all the other brand ambassadors to come and sing and say, well, these people are brand ambassadors of the mobile and they're already getting paid, so they weren't paid for the event. And that makes it okay. The same principle doesn't apply. So what the monies that TSTT spent to hold this big event, to put up big screen and all kind of thing, and invite whoever and giveaways, because I'm seeing people posting up all the giveaways that they had, that isn't impacting on taxpayers' money. In the same way she claimed the Angostura event cut into the profits of the citizens. No, that's not impacting the profits of citizens. No. But that's UNC logic for you, right? Yesterday was yesterday and today is today. Now they're in charge. They're in charge. So anything goes. Okay. No one threatening him. Is the Treasury fed up with him and threatening him? Poor Treasury. Poor Minister of Homeland Security. We have to feel sorry for him. They're using the man and he's blind, he ain't seen it. Listen, Zanda is the biggest scapegoat it has in this government. I sure there have been days when Zanda would have gone home and rub his head and say, boy, why I really get myself into, boy? Why I didn't just stay in the police service and relax myself doing what I love? Instead of all this bacchanal, all this, poor soul. If Zanda decided he went back, I would not be surprised in the least. I don't think he knew what he signed up for. Right? And this government is more than happy to use him as a scapegoat. As people are saying here. Because All the while when there was all the arguments and so on about why and this and whatnot, he wasn't talking. And when he did talk, you see the man struggled to defend the indefensible. All the listen, all the know, all the thing, whatever, whatever. It's all the lawyers who receiving the big money. Ramdeen and Strand and Edie and these guys who receiving big money. Well, just £1,500 an hour and so on. Not Xander. Xander's salary fixed. But he taking the most licks. Most licks. Poor soul. Because he signing thing. All they bring thing and when Jeremy say, sign that there, Xander. What Xander could do? Yes, sir. You really can ask question? You think you could question Jeremy and say, no, me said, I say sign it. Xander knows his place, you know. Right. He knows where he stands in the pecking order. And he's certainly not above Jeremy. Right? So, if he's the fall guy, you notice Jeremy quiet, Kamala quiet, and it's only Xander in the firing line. He taking all the bullets. He taking all the shots. That already fall out. Because when they call him, anyway. Let's see here. Jenny.
Hi, Dominic. Good afternoon.
Hi.
And we have no sort of on the facts and stubborn things. Dominic, I just want to focus on the part of the alleged audio tape.
Yes.
Where Star Sabga, is it? Star
Sabga, yes.
Right. Would have made a comment about the Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, while this is offensive, because we're not encouraging persons to use slurs that are defamatory or derogatory or anything like that, right?
Correct.
However, I'll put a however in this. That was a private conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In the Indian community, while I don't say everybody is, because there's not a totality of people doing everything. So I know there are some persons of Indian descent who carry themselves at the low level that Kamala Persad-Bissessar and this UNC. And those who support the UNC carry themselves. So those who carry themselves like the UNC and the supporters carry themselves, I am positive that they speak about African people behind closed doors, and they don't say African people. Right? We saw on social media, if you were under any doubt, what the supporters of the UNC or probably their family or whatever say about African people, we saw it during the 2020 general election when we were called monkey, hungry, don't-seek head PNM people, dotish, African people, the end will eat grass. And that was done, in our opinion, with the consent of the then opposition leader, because they had a whole campaign where they would put advertisement with people of African descent looking like vagrants on the streets, begging to think to eat. One person who lost his wallet job, and this person they have African descent as a vagrant found it and carried it to home, and he gave him a bag, greasy bag and bananas and all these kind of things. So we know what they do say about us as people of African descent behind closed door. When the then opposition leader in public, Star Sabga, we never hear she say nothing in public. That was a private conversation. I don't know how it gets intercepted, whatever, but in public, the opposition leader at the time, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, who is now the Prime Minister of this country, she told Honorable Camille Robinson Regis, Camille, where you have my name for? My name. I have a name of my ancestor called Indian name. What you have? Camille, what you have? Camille, you have your slave master name. We took offensive, and we came out in demonstration against that because we found it to be hate speech. Me and your UNC supporters say nothing. When as opposition leader Dr. Keith Christopher as Prime Minister went to Guyana, didn't Ms. Kamala Persad-Bissessar stay on a platform and asking a question? No. They should have thrown Rowley over down in river over the cliff or wherever the case may be. Then she said something to that effect. Then she, when she was Prime Minister in 2010-15, sat over the Parliament. When one Miss Tuckin came to the Parliament, after they put Dr. Rowley out of the Parliament, he couldn't get salary as a member of Parliament, he couldn't represent Diego Martin Central, I think, or what area he was representing down there. He was out of Parliament, and Vanilla Allen Tuckin, with the support of Dr. Rhoda Mullan and the UNC, then she come at a lie and said Dr. Rowley's father raped his mother, and then he born a rape, and he born angry, and he raped a young girl, and they start calling Dr. Rowley after that pedophile and rapist. Then one of them put up a sign to keep your children away from Rowley. When Dr. Rowley was in the band, the carnival band, and the Indian girl, not a baby, because she was in the band in her 20s, and she was a little baby and underage, she mother shouldn't have she there. She was in the band, and she go and fuck up Dr. Rowley and thing, and he keep walking with her. The kind of things they say about him. It was racist. But no, I turned that the Honorable Prime Minister, because she wants herself in Parliament, she said this little coolie girl. So then that was not offensive to her. She's the Prime Minister of this country, and she stands in Parliament and going all over the world. And knowing that the word coolie is offensive, and that's what she called herself. This little coolie girl. And again, what Star said was in private. Me ain't saying it right. But if it didn't come out, you would have never know. But we just hear them in public, calling we people of Africa, and he said, calling with the N-word, and monkey, and donkey. Right? Donkey head. We children was only play pan, and while them children studying. And they stigmatize the whole of Laventille, and Steelers and Beatham and Mova, and around the bridge. Stigmatize you as criminals. Yeah? We don't like to walk, we lazy. That's nothing wrong in that. But a woman having a private conversation, using the same words the Prime Minister used to describe herself, she just added some other adjectives to it. And all of a sudden, boycott water. But when Ramsaran family say what they should put inside things for we to drink, Massey pull it off the shelf under the CEO, Gavas Warner. And in 2 he had to put back all Ramsaran drinks on the shelf again. That wasn't racist. When they were telling people, put feces in the doubles and the chana for weekend to eat. That ain't racist. And I still see people of Africa listen on the lineup to get doubles. And when we they say boycott doubles, people say, why? It's not all of them does do that. And okay. But today, you want to tell people boycott Blue Waters. How much people of Indian descent in this country who have business does hire people of African descent? Huh? If it wasn't for the Syrian Lebanese community, a lot of African people who struggling at the lower end of the economic scale, or who want to just have something to do while they continue studying, they will still be without a work. Because all them places, they just hire people of African descent. Indian business don't really hire certain Indian people. You know why? It is alleged, they will say, it is alleged, they will say, Indian in the business are thieves. It is alleged. And they prefer to have African running the business. It is alleged. But the point I'm making is this. You see this convenient victim playing? It must stop. I have always advocated for a time to come for us to deal with race relation conversations in this country. It can't be when you say something about them after this, all kind of thing about you, and they defend, then they say they become the victim. No. We are all victims in this if they want to play that game, because they are the ones on social media. They calling us saying, when we defend ourselves against it, they say we racist. So I'm going to leave that there, because you see those situations are very troubling situations. I want to come to this situation where the economist, Ram Kissoon, I want them to speak about how the economy goes.
Yes.
Stuart Richard Young, Member of Parliament for Port of Spain, was sentenced West. He told us they're going to do all them things. On the campaign trail, he said, if you vote for the UNC, they're going to devalue the dollar, we're going to the IMF. He said, all these state companies are going to sell out the assets. He said, all will go close down. You know, his pulse and finger on what's happening in this country, because he served at all levels in the parliament when PNM was in office. So he understood. He knew in the finance committee thing, he knew where all the cabinet note going, he knew where all the money going. He was an energy, he knew. So he knew. And I want to say this, and this must be taken in the context because we are in serious times. I know, Dominic, you may be in a very challenging position. I empathize. I'm sure sometimes you must either say better than stay in social media and do your podcast and study politics. So I come into the politics now because this is serious times, Dominic. This is no time for games. This is no time for people studying where I could get, what contract I could get, what title I could get, what position I could get. This is about Trinidad and Tobago, and this is about we children and we children, and we fit here. The People's National Movement, as it stands now, and this is not Jennifer Frederick saying that, people are talking because they see it for themselves. Nowhere under the leader of the leadership we have now. And it's not because people don't like the individual. She does not command that type of performance, that kind of space politically to carry us nowhere. In Tobago, they decided, yes, we're going with security. They voted. They come General Council and they decided, yes, we're going with security. Because General Council, everybody voted, every person, they were supposed security. And then something went wrong. You don't know if it's position, title, but whatever it is, something went wrong. And the PNM in this position today, there are people who have evidence showing, people who are calling them and telling them, don't vote for security. So I also blame the PNM who are encouraging PNM people not to vote for security because it's a Chinese and because of them and other factors. The PNM now 13 men and women, UNC 28, the Tobago, and we're going through all this. And people usually just look for here, come back strong, 33-3, 20, because the leadership, they're ready to fight and come back and pull the party together. And people know that this PNM, or the PNM, is a government that's stable, credible, have the experience, has always built this country, always built the economy, has always done all the social programs that will help the less privileged, has always helped in defense at Trinidad and Tobago. Today, under this leadership, people are losing hope, Dominic. They could spin it, they could twist it, they could what? People are losing hope because they see the leadership of the PNM does not have the political acumen that it needs, especially in opposition, to take PNM into victory 2030. And all they need to start to say something, Dominic, because we out here and we frustrated, we fed up, we worried, we concerned, because Dominic, let me tell you, but all them people who get fired, child abuse is in because people can't mind their families. And because they can't mind their family, every little thing that's trigger them. And the child making a thing with her, the child is getting abused. Not because they want to abuse the children, but because they don't know how to deal with the stress of mommy not working, daddy not working, rent to pay, food to buy, school books. They can't take no more. Suicide, unfortunately, is going to increase. Domestic abuse is going to increase. Rape and sexual abuse will increase. Prostitution is going to increase. And when we're looking for the PNM, we hope to say, yes, we're coming out to canvas to get people. There's nothing done with. So let's check all yourselves. Check all yourselves. Thank you so much. Have a blessed week. Ahead to all those who listen on yourself.
Thank you so much, Jen. Let's see. Next time it's full 36 or 40, not a damn seat for them. Oh boy. Right. So the economic challenge, of course, continues. I visited Westmall a couple days ago, and I saw um, London clothing store that has been a staple in Westmall for the longest while is now closed. I understand there are more stores that have been there for a while, maybe close soon as well. To replace with what? I don't know. But as UNC for you, I was talking about that. Better days, we went from better days are coming to better days are here in the space of a month. Better days are here, really. When last week, yeah, them talk about the refinery. 15 months later, what going on with that? The PNM was still in office. By now, we would have probably done something with Oando, and the flame that UNC loves to talk about that they miss might have been lit. They tell us investors kicking down Munilal door and they kicking down whose door was it by? The Minister of Foreign Affairs. Really? Okay. What's going on with the gas deals? Shookers. Eric.
Good afternoon, to the most distinctive member of Parliament for Malama Mosika. And to all the listeners, the callers, the viewers, for another segment of Facts and Stubborn Things. Now, I want to address 3 pointers, right? The first one is with the Petrochemical refinery. Now, last month, myself, Jenny, and a few others decided to go down to the Labor Day celebration in Harvard because I have never been there. This would have been the first year I went to that event. Right? And when I saw the behavior of persons in this government is very questioning because we were at a location, our establishment, playing nice music, everything was playing nice, no good vibes, everything, right? From the moment the Minister of Energy, we got the doctor, Rudal Munilal, entered there with his entourage, the whole atmosphere, the whole vibe, everything just changed. Like a dark cloud is just hover over something and the whole energy just went off. And when we were trying to enjoy ourselves and trying to think, it had persons in his entourage was kind of shielding him from the public spectacle because if you are a minister of a ministry, right, and you are portraying yourself in this kind of shield and you're hiding, you know why you got to hide? Because all your lie, all your fool, and all deceive the people of this country. That is why most of them have to be hiding behind closed doors or behind somebody because all this shame. Because the people gave for their mandate and all they did not own up. So we just left because the whole energy was off and they turned the Labor Day celebration into a political right? All they must be. Tanku, this one, that one. Felicia Thomas want to play, she's the best flag woman in NTSA. You understand? And this is why we are in the position we are in today. Because the UNC government, who is their president, would have bought out, or should say bought out, silence the public service sectors and trade union leaders in this country to side with them. So, at present, it has nobody or no union body to really champion cause on the behalf of body mates. None. Clyde Ella was the biggest mouthpiece in the telecommunications workers union. He had the loudest mouth when he was president or secretary. Today he's a member of parliament in a ministry, but calling the same people who you once represented, right, as trash.
Hmm.
Eh? Now I always say monkey doesn't know or doesn't their own tail. But we will get when you put up government who have no plan, who have no vision, who have no clue and how to negotiate different aspects for the betterment of this country. Now, the Prime Minister jump out, she says, Madam 16 jump out, right? Madam 16 jump out and say how there are cordial talks with Venezuela with respect to the cross-border sector. Well, me and Delcy, President Delcy was against put out any statements regarding that. You know, it's only here. So they're trying to count the eggs before it actually hatches. You understand? Because me ain't hear nothing, me ain't see nothing about the energy sector with the cross-border with both countries, because to my knowing, they still consider Madam 16 as persona non grata. You think Venezuela forgets what this woman, Madam 16, and she bunch of kleptomaniacs who they know have nothing good to say about the former president Nicolas Maduro, and they never thought that today they'll be serving office to face Delcy. Now, you want to talk about Maduro? You silent yourself, put yourself in Donald Trump drawers, right? You put yourself inside there. Each and do you know? You can hit 10% tariff in your backside.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And then now you have your minister at school, clueless at school, want to blame the TNM for the negative impact. On your day, 15 months. Not tomorrow. I think it's Tuesday, we'll make it 15 months on your day. 15 months on your day. And what all they achieve other than giving an extension of an SOE more than a year later. The SOE is just like an Indian Expo. Only extension. Right? Now, this SOE supposed to end on the 17th of September, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Diwali is in 9th of November. What should they? They're not going and impose no other SOE until after Christmas. But mind you, Carnival only next year. Carnival is the 8th and 9th of February. So let me see what happens after the 17th of September. If they will have an extension going down the road until Christmas. Because Diwali, you know, they don't want to interrupt the Diwali celebration, because they want to make sure that they celebrate the Diwali celebration the 9th of November. So they want to put things in place to put that date out of the SOE. So after that, anything can happen after that. You understand? But then again, this is the SOE government, and the Madam 16 is using this SOE. This SOE outlives its usefulness in dealing with any threat or whatever. So let me say the MP. We have a serious problem going to come. Let me say uprising or whatever, coup or whatever. Do you think the SOE now will be substantiated now, well, for that period, to deal with that aspect, if it's an overthrow the government or whatever? The SOE, what they're using it outlive its usefulness, and they are using the SOE to target persons who speak or who oppose to the government is doing on a day-to-day basis. You cannot protest, but it's a democratic right. You can't protest. You can't say nothing about the government. Why? You're ready to send police in front of your door to lock it up. Let me be real outside here. Let me be realistic, because these people, you cannot say nothing bad about this government. Nothing. You can't criticize them. Why? When Dr. Rowley and the PNM was there the last 10 years, all they had all kind of things to say about Dr. Rowley. Dr. Rowley's wife, how it is with some soldier man and some soldier, some policeman. Dr. Rowley buys this, Dr. Rowley children this, and they're going tooth and nail. You see Dr. Rowley ever went and get police to come in somebody's house to arrest them because it is democratic speech. That is your rights. That is your opinion. But under Madam 16 and a bunch of kleptomaniacs, they can't say nothing. Why they quick to use the racial term or racial remarks and going to send police to lock you up because they can't say nothing about the government. And you telling me this is not a dictatorial state. Kamala and David on that dictatorship mentality. They are behaving like dictators. When Justice Manning got his soul, when he was always say Manning is Mugabe, Manning this and Manning that and Manning the other. Dr. Rowley is a dictator. But I'm glad now people see who's the real dictator or dictatress. Madam 16. You understand? But the other man I want to talk as Akiba hogwash. I say, oh, the crime statistics have been dropped under this government, and it was high under the PNM, and the statistics is showing that the 118 murders would have been decreased under this government and this year. And so what I'm saying, 2025, or they came into office in April last year. So 2025, that's all the radar. So you jump from 2025 back to 2024. You understand? And it goes to show the politicizing everything once it benefiting them and their people. That's why all the people, all the trolls could jump on social media and come and speak ill and peddle the bullshit. Sorry. You understand? Peddle it. Look at Talk City 91.1. Right? A state-owned radio station using it to peddle the BS with two clowns that don't even know if they're coming or if they're going. Because both of them peddling and they just continuing with that diatribe on the national airwaves. But then again, that's you can see for you. So with that being said and done, I won't do the PNM today because I know I have some links to get the PNM too. I have some what in there, but I'll do them on a subsequent newscast. But right now, this government, and I hope people understand, election and voting has consequences to uplift and to have a country running efficiently. So I hope when election time call again, not too distant, in a short distance, people in this country will understand what they went through the last 15 months. And anyway, MP, good program. Long time listening.
Thank you, sir. Alexander, audio leak did not originate from security forces. Lord, Father. So where do you, boy? I'm taking this last call here. Yes, I enable, huh? Not today. Brian. Hello?
Good afternoon, MP.
Yes, sir.
MP Romain.
Greetings.
Good afternoon to your listeners and callers. To remain the Honorable former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley made a statement just recently. And he indicated, I think it was on the news yesterday, was that basis what he is seeing happening in the country and the way finances are going.
Yes.
That we are heading straight into the loving arms of the International Monetary Fund. Dr. Rowley is not one to come out and speak arbitrarily or just say things but because he wants to say something. Because he's asking certain questions, and these are some of the questions I would like your listeners to ask. Because if your listeners go back to when this present government got into office, one of the first things that they did was to take out $1 billion out of our savings. And up to today, we don't know what has happened to that money. Then they went and they borrowed $1 billion abroad to pay back $1 billion that is due in August, which is just simply next month. And then they took out more money again, as you alluded to, out of the HSF, another 500 million. And they also went and they borrowed another 800 million abroad, which they were deeply talking about the interest is 6.2%. All of this money has, as Dr. Rowley indicated, has to be paid back. I want to ask your listeners, if it is what we are hearing that they are borrowing this money to pay loans that are coming due, and to pay for what you call it, salaries and so on. How are they going to pay back this money? Because, as I always keep repeating, Marlene Acts has indicated that to pay back this foreign exchange that they are borrowing, that's to pay it back in US currency, not $80. Yes, the current expenditure that they're using this money for, it has to be repaid in US dollars when it becomes due. So the borrowings continue. But what is important, Trinidad and Tobago listeners and so on, is that Dr. Rowley also indicated before the last election that most of our foreign exchange, our revenue streams, comes from our downstream industries where we are the world's greatest provider of ammonia. Well, one of the world's, ammonia and methanol, urea, and so on. But today, Nutrien and now Methanex are shut down. So a lot of revenue that was supposed to be coming into the country is no longer coming here. So those streams have been curtailed. People have been sent home. People have been they're not on the job, They have been sent home making no money. And there does not seem to be any great concern because, you see, there's no gas. There doesn't seem to be any great concern because they were wrapping up so much time on his hands now because there's nothing much happening in Point Lisa and he could afford to take up the Hadi case for the state. He has time on his hands. There's nothing happening with the refinery at this time. I pass there all the time. I don't see anything happening. When I make my calls to certain people, they say nothing is happening. No change. At this point in time, I don't know if anything is going on behind the scenes. I don't know. But at this time, nothing is happening. So I'm asking people who are home today, and who's hoping that when the gas comes. Tony Hall was on a program on Friday on I-95.5 and he indicated that even when the gas begins to come, that Shell has to pay back the people in taxes and also pay back shares to their people. That there will be no set of money coming to the coffers of the state. And on top of that, this present government has reduced royalties from 12.5% down to 8%. So it begs the question, when the gas starts to come and the amount of money that people believe that we're going to be getting, we don't get, because Shell and BP has to ensure, first of all, that Venezuela gets their fair share and that their shareholders of Shell and BP and the taxes that they will also have to pay are paid and their share shareholders get what is due to them. And the minuscule what we may get is may not be very well be enough. They even spoke about the amount of gas. Because remember, the little gas that we are getting right now at present, may very well, those streams may dry up. And we begin to get gas from Manatee and maybe Lauren. So don't believe that, okay, it's good to add it to what we are getting now because those streams are drying up. Some of these streams like ginger and coconut may come on stream next year or in 2028, perhaps, to bring it up to the 4.2 billion cups of gas per day that we may need. But where is that going to and where is the money going to? So if you all believe that in 2027, 2028, everything will be all right and dandy, don't listen to me. Listen to what Tony Hall said on Friday on the Mariano Brown program. Don't listen to me. Listen to what Dr. Rowley is saying. These are the people who we know who have dealt with these type of issues at the microscopic level. And a lot of negotiations has to take place. But if even Kamala Kosabi said they believe because of the earthquake in Venezuela sending across the galleons, passing with a lot of things, they believe that they will be back in the good graces of Delcy Rodriguez. They better think again. Because that is the only reason why they would have done that. With a smile and a wink. But Delcy not going to forget. And Delcy going to still make sure that we pay for every molecule of gas if we're to get any type of gas at all. So it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. So when you believe that things are going to change for the better overnight, it is not in fact so. And things are getting worse because it's not only in East-West corridor things are bad, you know. Even down in Kamala Prasad, which is our own constituency in Debe and Pinal, people are not making, but people are complaining they're not making any money. Look at the amount of murders in places like Siparia now, just over the last couple of months. 6 to 7 murders. When last we hear about murders like that in Siparia? When last we hear about murders in Pinal? This is what is happening. So people are looking for other ways and means of getting money because many of them are no longer working. Many of them have lost their jobs. Many of them who were working in bars are no longer working in. Look at the boat that was leaving to go back to Venezuela with all of the Venezuelans. What are they going back for? You think so good in Trinidad and think so bad in Venezuela. Why a whole boatload of them that capsized in Los Tiro after they left the shores? Why is they so going back to Venezuela? To look for what reason? Was going back for holidays to come back? It's because of how bad things are in Trinidad. It's not any better. But we will wait and see. I always hope I am wrong, and I hope that something gets to the better, and that we do get the gas. And right now, the government making a bit of money because of the war between Iran and United States of America, because gas prices now have risen to over $91 US. And that's what that system a bit. But when that drops off again, what happens? What happens? As a matter of fact, look at what the government said recently. You know, it jumped over everybody and it made the news once, but did they come up on the news yet? That the government has decided to increase the taxation on hybrid vehicles. Will you hear that anywhere since you heard it Saturday morning, 7 o'clock news? Have you heard it on any newsreel, any news items since then? So even when Ember was giving up glide to people who were going into the EV mode as well as the hybrid mode to reduce taxation, this government is saying, hey, we're going to increase taxation on hybrid vehicles again. So it goes to show you. And the president of the Used Car Dealers Association, I can't remember his name, was making a separate noise on the news that he has to talk to the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister. Not me, he said so. But since he said that, he news again anywhere else? No. Because you don't want all of to remember those things. But don't worry, only have to buy vehicles, only to see when vehicles go up the prices and so on, and only to realize what this government is doing. So all the reduction in taxation and so on, and all of these goodies and so on that they're going to give us, where is it all of a sudden? It has disappeared. And just now is another budget. They say very, very little. But be mindful and be careful, because they may very well attempt to do an evaluation. I don't know, maybe, I don't know. But we shall see in a very short space of time. Dominic, I thank you very, very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Jenny.
Dominic,
Hi.
you still on the program?
Yes.
I just want to give the supporters of the present opposition leader, political leader, the PNM, some friendly advice. If you all find that she is the best person to take us into election victory, then call the radio station all over and big she up. If you all have a brand that is really good, why are you not selling the brand? Why are you not studying what I'm saying? I am talking from a place where I have my evidence and my information, so I'm speaking what I'm saying. But if you all have something different than what I'm saying, please, I implore you all, get on the radio station and sing her praises. Tell us what she has done in all her time as a member of parliament for REMA, all her time in the different ministries that she was the head of, all the times in politics. Let people know. Every time I'm asking for the information so I can speak about it on my podcast or call the radio to talk about it. She don't only tell me she's a nice lady and she did a long time. She could cut off the coconut, she could make bake, she could dance the jig, and she was down with the people. That is a social aspect, which is good. We're talking about the politics of it. And yes, Ms. Natasha Scott Gilbert, I will keep talking about it. Because while you all focus on the political leader, the PNM, who is there because of the PNM membership, my conversation is about the opposition of Trinidad and Tobago, the opposition leader of Trinidad and Tobago, who has to stand in defense of all the citizens, whether PNM, whether it is vote, whether USC. That is what I'm focused on. And yes, Ms. Natasha, I will speak about it because I like to talk about democracy. And I am saying, in choosing the opposition leader Trinidad and Tobago, the Constitution speaks about the members of Parliament who find somebody, whoever it is, they have the most confidence in, that they vote them as the Prime Minister or the opposition leader. 13 members of Parliament won the seat in the PNM, no problem. But when they were choosing the opposition leader, only 7 MPs sat down and they made their choice of Ms. Penelope Beckles. The next 6 MPs were not invited and knew nothing about it until after the fact. And there's evidence to support that, my dear Ms. Natasha Barry. So I'm not upset with the PNM or upset with Ms. Penelope Beckles, but if we're talking democracy, if we talking we want to do better, because they blame Dr. Rowley and say what he do and he didn't do whatever. Okay, then do better than Dr. Rowley. You all are not doing better than Dr. Rowley. In fact, the national executive of the PNM is doing worse than the things they accuse Dr. Rowley about. So yes, I'll continue because I want to see the PNM back in office. I want to see a strong PNM. I don't want to just see the members fighting, Dominic Romain fighting, Marvin Gonzalez fighting, Kareem fighting, Birchwood fighting, Xiao Tiong fighting, Manin fighting, Embers fighting, Hans fighting. They have a leader, and we expect to see that leader stand in Parliament and talk. She bring her emotion and she shut down she own emotion. She talking a woman with so much experience in politics. She see these things. So that's what we concerned about, my dear. It's not only about she, we're saying that if you're the leader, step up to the plate, and she does not step up to the plate. If you take away Dominic and the rest of them by herself, my goodness, I don't know what will happen. So a leader needs to lead from in front, not from behind. And nothing wrong with having a leader who is quiet, who is demure, because we had one like that. We had George Chambers, but he commanded the state when he stood in it. Unfortunately, it's nothing to do with her personality. She does not. She's not able to. So the PNM has a choice to make. Don't study me alone. It's not I alone say anything, but you all decide to study what I say. I is not the PNM. I'm outside the PNM. I'm speaking and talking. If only again, I'm saying as an ending. If you are supporting the political leader, opposition leader, call on the radio station. Go all over Facebook and tell and convince and tell her to the public that she's not to be, so that when election comes, the young people between the ages of 18 and 45 will come out and say, yes, we support the PNM. That the elders who they report geriatrics and children on the side will say, I'm coming back and vote for the PNM. That's what you will have to do. And I implore you all to do it, because once you all start to do it and show me credible information and evidence where she's able to, I will tell her because I work here and I'm back in office, but I'm not saying that, so I will continue to say what I'm saying. She's politically weak. Thank you, Mr. Gum.
Kitchen. Right, so I just say one thing before I leave, just to give you all, and one thing I used to admire Aisha Wells for, right? It's her ability to call out the Red Army. When she was on 91.9, she used to do that very well. And as you all know, we are supposed to go to convention in November of this year. We are currently in the process of doing the party group elections, which will be followed by the constituency AGM's conference, and then we go to convention. Every place that the PNM has so far identified that falls under the government for us to have our convention, all of a sudden, it's not available in November. Queens Hall, Napa, Sapa, QPS, all over, conveniently. And it speaks to how vindictive and nasty this government is, that they seem hell-bent on trying to destroy the PNM. That's why they come in after us with this nonsense about Balize House and all of that. In fact, I take note that since this whole issue about Balize House came to the fore, persons have been asking what about the money that is owed to the PNM by the UNC, costs from the failed, that misadventure that was the election petition in 2015, where the UNC sought to challenge the results in 6 seats, the marginal seats, in an attempt to overturn the results of the election so that they could get back into office. To date, they are still owing the PNM millions of dollars. But when Kamala Persad-Bissessar once said and told her supporters, it is better to rent than to own. And now I understand why she would have said that. Because they don't really have any assets that the PNM could levy on, to seize, to take, to recoup, to recover those monies that are owed to us in legal fees from 2015. So all he talked about is about the PNM and sell tulum and sell sugar cake and sell. Give us our money. All the millions that you all spent on the election, come on. And you all know how to manage money better than the PNM. Well, give us our money. We're just asking for it. I tell you. So CKS 6562 is saying, just show your receipts to the court. Very simple. I said before and I'll say it again. It doesn't matter what the PNM could come and provide all receipts, all everything that you all need, itemizing where we got the money from, how the money was spent. And it would never satisfy the UNC. It would never satisfy those of you who are against the PNM. Nothing we say, nothing we provide. We could come and say, look, We lay out all the receipts on our table in Balize House. It is open to the public. You all come and see. The UNC people will come and all they will find something and say, no, this, and there is no convincing you all. But yet still, we saw where the UNC, when I think Pandey was there or whatever, this screenshot of this message from Yunanan Prasad, who was once treasurer of the UNC, talking about some $9 million was raised by the party to contribute towards building a headquarters, and nothing, no headquarters built. Where the money went? You're not asking your executive, the executive of your party, where the money went. When the UNC was raising money through the Choka Fet and the Dollar Fet that they used to have in Center of Excellence and all these things that they had, right? They made money that they claimed was supposed to be for the construction of our headquarters. Where is that money? None of the supporters of the UNC asking where that money went, what it was spent on. But you're all up in PNM business and want to know how Balize House built. You all can't even decide on the figures. We hear 100 million, 150 million, 200 million, 250 million, all of that. Study what is going on with your party. Why you all don't have a headquarters and where all of these millions went. You're not concerned about that? Because if these people cannot be trusted with the management of party funds, how can you trust them with the management of the treasury of Trinidad and Tobago? But no questions about that, you know. But want to know where PNM get the money from and where and how Balize House built. Right now, as I said, we are in the process of doing our internal elections and so on. From the party group stage come up. Our membership are required to pay the dues. It's $120 a man, right? And with all the party groups that we have, we recently had a Back in Times party. We continue to do the things that we've been doing all the time. When it is that we were having our September affair, $1,500 a plate, where were you all? Everything is always the 1% and the 1% and all of this set of foolishness. The PNM is an organized party, we're a structured party, but anyway, in the fullness of time, all the information that you all want would be laid bare. But as I said, it will never satisfy the UNC, because when it's called cognitive dissonance. When you've held on to a lie for so long and it becomes the truth, that when it is you finally get evidence that dispels this lie, what are you to do? You're in the wilderness, because if I let go of this, what I will do? I always say the PNM was this and the PNM was that. It's just like all of you who used to say the PNM and do nothing for 10 years, $60 billion spent, $600 billion spent. And what the PNM had to show for it? But all over this country, you're seeing things money was spent on, right? 3 ferries bought. You all do ever talk about that? Kamla Prasad was Prime Minister for 5 years, never bought a single ferry. Run down the 2 that Mr. Manning left. Arima Hospital built. Point Fortin Hospital built. Sangre Grande Hospital built. Roxborough Hospital built. And the Central Block that was recently handed over. And these bastards want to find some way to be able to take credit for that, and the supporters, when they saw the footage with the handover. Thanks UNC and thanks Kamla Prasad Bisesa for doing what? For finishing what the PNM started. They came and met a project ongoing and finished it. And you want to give them credit for that? The same thing with the airport in Tobago. PNM may do nothing and PNM may do nothing. But today, Fali understands the potential that this airport terminal could bring. They could now accommodate 3 million passengers a year. Now they have a facility that will be able to accommodate significantly more flights than what currently exists or what was there before. The PNM did that. But then you have the current minister of planning and economic development talking about Tobago needed an airport terminal, but not the one the size that they have there. So in other words, he is telling Tobagonians, the PNM do too much for all. They spend too much money. You all did not need to have such a grand airport terminal, perhaps one of the best in the Caribbean. For those of us who have traveled and have seen what exists in other Caribbean nations as an airport, that new terminal in Tobago is among the best. But Swarat Singh say that was too good for all. The PNM didn't need to build something so fancy, right? Because it's probably even better than the Piarco airport too. And they didn't have no allegations of corruption. PNM built a whole airport terminal, no. But when the UNC built Piarco, corruption galore. And the only thing you all could have come up with for that airport and that terminal in Crown Point is cost overrun because of delays that were brought about as a result of COVID. Because of supply chain issues, prices of things went up, and all of that. And therefore, the project timeline was extended and the budget went up a bit because the cost of the material and so on went up. But that was all. And all Lisa Morris Julian is because she talked about that, and that's why and they kill her. All kind of conspiracy theories you all came up with, the most arrant nonsense. But again, the PNM had to take some licks for not telling the population all the things that they did. And as I said, when I heard Champa Kojo the other day on I-95.5 rattling off all the things that some of the things the PNM did, that me, right? I would do all my research, didn't even know some of those things that Champa Kojo mentioned. So if I didn't know, what is left for the rest of the citizenry? But it always upsets me when I see UNC people come on Facebook and asking, name 5 things the PNM do, and name 2 things the PNM do. And more often than not, PNM supporters are unable to name it. But I don't blame you all, no. I don't blame you all. We needed to do better to tell you all what it is that we did. But we probably just assumed that, people seeing things happening. But if you're living in Deep South and things happening in the East, you wouldn't know. Likewise, if you're living in the East and things happening in South, development taking place in South, you wouldn't know because you're not going down there. So we should have focused more on telling the population the things that we did. But lesson learned. And when we do come back into office, it's not going to happen again. Right? We will make sure the population knows exactly what we did at every turn. You see how the UNC now, well, what little that they do, everything for them now is a camera. If Jolene walk out of her office to go to the ladies, there's a camera. You have to see what is the outfit she wearing today. She have a folder. She walking from her office to the boardroom to have a meeting. That is on show. Everything now is a show. Michelle Benjamin, well, she turned Hollywood star. Everything she only doing a set of skits in her office and all of that. And yeah. So maybe we need to follow suit on that. We can probably learn a thing or two from the UNC when it comes to social media and how they were able to dominate that. Zuku, you feeling okay? You actually agreeing with me on something? What? Admitting your government give you a 619? Let's see if it's snowing outside. Sun hut. Something wrong. Something wrong. Oh boy. Let me see. Daniela says Kamala has no receipts. Kamala come with two old notebook with a set of dog ears and talking about for 10 years she and Dr. Bisessa, who is a doctor and she's a lawyer, was saving chirrup, her words. And every time money come, they buy some cement and they buy some blocks and some other material and so on, and little bit by bit, they were able to build their house. You couldn't complete it in 10 years, but as soon as you became Prime Minister in 2010, in 6 months, it finished and it grew. New additions, including a helipad. All of that wasn't on the original thing when you were saving and chirrup as money come. Lawyer and doctor. Trucks pull up in front of your house all of a sudden, but no decals on trucks, so you don't know which company they're working for. Conveniently. But no questions about that. The Palace Bill, supporters don't want, the woman is a lawyer and her husband is a doctor and they work hard on the bill. Yeah, right. But PNM can't do that. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Langston Roach, very successful businessman of African descent, at President's House on Friday. He gave us a little history of how his business started, and and I looked at this man and I said, when I see and I hear supporters of the UNC and people like Philip Alexander talking nonsense about African people can't own business. And I listened to Mr. Roach tell me the amount of his products that goes to Guyana every week. He says 5 trucks goes to Tobago every week. The amount of his products going to Guyana every week. He said, I want to know what they're doing with my products, if they're drinking it over there. Right? But he's a very successful businessman. And he's just one of many other people, like we had Herbert York, who are owned York Structures and so on. All of these things. Companies that were owned. We have in my own constituency here, George Sheetworks, again, Adams Construction and so on, right? All of these, McClatchy's, all of these are successful businessmen, African descent. But you see, they're not loud like some people who feel like they need to trumpet and tell the world, look, I'm successful. Look, Look at me, right? And and I wouldn't say it's a problem. I don't blame these men for that at all, because they are not about it is not their responsibility to tell Trinidad and Tobago or to tell persons of other ethnicities who believe that the African community can run business, successful businesses. They are not they are not the spokesmen for that. There's no association that they have to come out and tell you. If you all choose not to see and want to talk that rubbish, well then go ahead. Feel free to do so. Be Well and Company, again, Barry and Barry Ferdinand, two very successful black businessmen. RBP Lifts, Robinson, Barnes and Perryman, one of the most successful lift companies in this country, if not the most successful, again, owned by 3 men of African descent. Lezama Electrical, again, all of these, we could go on and talk about Arlene's Mall and all these people, successful. But we don't talk about them. Well, the thing is only the East Indian community and the 1%, the Syrian Lebanese community, apparently, that could own business in Trinidad and Tobago. And only them doing well. But meanwhile, you have other people who are very successful of African descent and they're doing their thing and they couldn't be bothered. You all could say whatever it is you want, they know. So, let me see. PF Curtis is saying, you said when we get back to office, you all will make sure you inform the public. While in office, why not now? We're supposed to have videos showing the digitalized forms of government services. I agree with you, but what I'm saying is that going forward, that whatever is done when we get back into office, we would not make that same mistake again to not tell the population what is being done. Because at this point in time, to tell the population what we did, all they will say, so why I didn't talk about that before? How come I only now come to talk about that? It has happened. You all know I have tried, and as much as we would have created a list during the election that we were putting out for people to see, to tell you all what it is that we did. But again, the problem must be, and people were not sharing it enough. So even when we tell, based on the platforms that we use, again, that's another problem that I have with PNM supporters. I don't know if it is they're ashamed to let their friends and family and whoever know who they support politically. So they will read things, they will like it, but they would not share it. Because every time they hit share, the friends will see, well, so and so shared this and so shared that, and I don't know if that's the problem. But UNC people don't have a problem. And Roberts will come now and put out the most vile, disgusting, nasty episode of Doubles and Coffee, and at the end of the day, 400 and 500 shares. And they're running with that. Wherever he says gospel, unfortunately. There is Josen Arima, correct. Let me see. What sounds so racist? CKS 6562. What is racist? Tell us. Before I leave, let me know now. What sounds so racist? And see, and that's the problem. That's the problem. Other races are free to talk about their successes, but anytime we talk about the success of the African community, you all have a problem with it. That makes it racist? Really? So you prefer, don't talk about it and allow people like Philip Alexander to come and talk nonsense, a minister of government, to come and talk foolishness and say that persons of African descent serve only 2 purposes in this country, that of laborers and consumers, and just leave it at that. And say, yes, he's making sense. So don't come and defend it by calling out some of the businesses that the African-owned businesses in Trinidad. That's your problem. That is a problem with highlighting Black excellence is a problem. No, but we have a problem. We talk about Prestige Holdings and all of these different companies and so on. And we'll talk about Bhagwan Singhs and we'll talk about Kusal and Junior Sami and stuff. No problem with that. But as soon as you decide to call out a few and acknowledge to debunk the lie that is told by UNC supporters, and it irks me when I see you all go on social media and put these nasty comments, as I saw one this morning, saying that with respect to the Hadids, something to the effect, well, the reason why Star Sabga will attack Kamala Persad-Bissessar is because she knows it is East Indian entrepreneurship that they are afraid of, because they know they have nothing to be afraid of with the African community. What the hell does that mean? What does that mean? I think we know exactly what it means, but we wouldn't denounce that as being racist. Exactly. Always like to play victim. Sickens me when it is that I see you all talking nonsense and trying to put down persons, put down the African community as not having made any significant contribution to the development of Trinidad and Tobago from an economic standpoint. Not just by going to stores and spending their money. They have contributed to thriving businesses in this country that you all choose to pretend does not exist. Utter rubbish. Chioki Pear saying, I only find weed blacks don't have enough industry owners and drivers. Chioki, I think we do, but as I said, there are lots of businesses in this country that are owned by persons of African descent, and the unfortunate thing is that we don't know. Because when that project, that Red House project, that cost $441 million, right? And when there was this argument about, again, and I went and I did my research, and I was surprised to see that some of the companies that I thought was owned by persons of other ethnicities were actually owned by persons of African descent. That's why I said, based on what I was able to confirm, at least 125 million of that 441 went to companies that are owned by persons of African descent. But the thing is that it is not publicly known. You don't see these guys attending functions and so on. You don't see their names appearing in the newspapers. You have people like Eustace Nances, who owns Arima Door Center, and he owns this grocery there by Cleaver Woods and so on. Again, success persons. You have this guy, this parboiled rice, James, the James fella, whose home Akil Chambers died. Where he died, right? When he was murdered there. But Mr. James has a successful business. I forget the name of the brand of the parboiled rice that he sells. Another very successful businessman of African descent. But again, these people are not, they don't put themselves in the limelight and say, look me here. You don't see the Business Guardian featuring them and talking about, hey. So most people don't even know. So they just see a business and assume and are not aware as to who are the owners behind this business. What are you talking about? It is the court and not the UNC. What are you talking about? This CKS, oh my God, it is the court and not the UNC. Are you talking about the issue with the Hadith? Really? The court said release the person, release the people immediately into under house arrest. It was the UNC government that decided to challenge that. Whatever reason, when John Jeremy came to the parliament and decided to talk that rubbish and rehash verbatim the words that were said by Mario Sabga Aboud in that interview that was done by Anthony Bourdain years ago, what was the purpose of that? Please tell us, what was the purpose of John Jeremy coming and reading from an article word for word what Mario Sabga Aboud said about them being the smallest in size, but they control 95% of wealth, whatever it was. What was the purpose of that? Of him coming and putting that as a preamble to come and talk about what? Of what significance was that to what was being debated in the parliament at the time? None. It was a clear and blatant attack on the Syrian Lebanese community. And then talking and referring to them as the owners of the PNM and the handlers of the PNM. Again, where does that come from? And in what context did that serve what was being debated in the parliament? And then go to the upper house and talk a certain nonsense about you had members of the Syrian Lebanese community or that community who had unlimited access to US and would go and swipe the card for a weekend for 100,000 US and come back and pick. Of what was the purpose of that? So that it is mind-blowing that mere days after John Jeremy came in the parliament and did that on 2 occasions that these people were arrested. Why were their phones tapped? Since it's not the government, it's the court. Why were their phones tapped? Please tell us. Because we know it's not every citizen's phone is tapped. So all of these things you need to come. So when you try to make it seem as if this is not political, when all arrows point in that direction. Really. Why is Star Sabga still detained? When she was detained for the very same reason that Dominic and Genevieve were. But their PDOs were pulled back and Star is still there. But it's not political. No, it's not the UNC. It's the court. It's the court. You can't be serious. See here. And Shuke saying, and he also mentioned where they lived and land and other direct statements. Exactly. If that was an attack on these people, I don't know what is. When you could say, well, if you all wanted this and that, and Tetron awaits you and all of that, it was political. You think if under the PNM, if Faris had come and said something like that about some UNC financier, what the situation would have been? If it is Reginald Amor had done what John Jeremy did, UNC would have been up in arms. If they did that and then you see mere days later, some UNC financier was arrested. When they were claiming the same legislation they want to use to come after Balize House, they didn't support it. They said that the Explain Your Well bill, the civil asset forfeiture bill, the PNM was going to use it to go after UNC supporters and UNC politicians. That's what they said. You all would not have tolerated that. All manner of conspiracy theories would have hit. First time you ever see an attorney general do something like that. And then days later, a prominent member of the very community that he spoke about was arrested and charged. Well, not charged, but detained. Him, his wife, and another family member. But can't tell us why. And a whole month later, still you have nothing to charge them with. And the court is telling you, listen, you see what all the presenters here to try and make a case to say that these people were part of some plot. What you presented to us does not identify any such thing. All we see, all we heard was offensive and vehement language. This is what the court said. So how you all derive or came to the conclusion that there was some plot or some conspiracy to kill parliamentarians coming out of what we heard, clearly you all heard something different to us, because what we heard was somebody who was using offensive and vehement speech. This is what the court said, and I read it out. The court said nothing else. So to say, oh my God, is the court and it's not the UNC, absolute rubbish. Rubbish. Old lady saying, will UNC have jobs for people if the people pack up and leave the country? No, they will not. They will not. And when you see the extent, and that's the other unfortunate thing, because when you look at the contribution that the Syrian Lebanese community makes in terms of employment, and it's not just low-level employment. When Dr. Rowley said there is nothing wrong with the rich getting richer, but the poor must come out of poverty. And he said, because when the rich get richer, they create opportunities for the poor. Supporters of the UNC, all they heard is that the rich people will just create minimum wage jobs for the poor. But go and look at Ansa McCall and see, look across the spectrum of the executive leadership of Ansa McCall and see who are the people on top. I'm not talking about the family, the Sabga family. Look below, the CFO, for years, Jerry Brooks of African descent was the COO, the Chief Operating Officer of Ansa McCall. If you go and look now, the corporate secretary, I think the CFO and several others, go to Prestige Holdings and you will see who the CFO is. Look at that and see at the helm of these companies, people making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month working for these companies. So when it is you all say, oh, they're greedy and they're this and they're that, and come on. But even the factory workers, look at when Dominic Hadid was and his wife were released. The newspaper did a story. They went and talked to the staff and they were so happy and so relieved. They said employees were in tears because they said the man is very down to earth. He will come and he will walk the floor, walk the factory and talk to people that is a family. They said they consider him to be part of their family. That's what was said. They loved the man as a boss. So they were distressed when it is that he was arrested. They were saying prayers, they were having vigils. This is what was reported, right? So he will come and work, not like some people who figure they're in an ivory tower and okay, well, I'm the boss and so I don't talk to the plebs. But he talking to everybody, the delivery driver, the people who on the production line, everybody he talking to as if they're friends. They don't have a problem approaching him. Not many employers you could say you could do that with, but and these people not well, Kamala diabetic and Jeremy have cancer. Okay, I was not aware of that. Brookman is saying if it was the PNM under Dr. Rowley, they would have raked him over the coals. Of course. Anaya saying, MP Romain, it was a pleasure meeting you at the PNM meeting. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I mean, it's the same thing. What they say about Dr. Oli. Dr. Oli was at the president's house on Friday, and Butchwood and I and Senator Rajman from Tobago, we had an opportunity to have a discussion with him. We spoke with him for quite a while, and you know, in a social setting, Dr. Oli is a totally different person from the man you always see at the press conferences and so on. Down to earth, cool, nothing like how people say he's a pit bull, and that was not what we got on Friday at all. I can tell you that. Not at all. And there and Sharon come behind him and he's like, remember, before the wife, you know, real cool fella. I mean, yeah, it's like Dr. Oli in the social setting and Dr. Oli in the formal official setting is two totally different people, and I think it's unfortunate that the majority of the population don't know that side of it. Let's see. Yeah, this government crashed long time. Long time. Waste that time. Tanku is out of his depth. And I understand they're putting real pressure on the central bank governor. Poor Hawaii. I mean, say, well, let me not say poor Hawaii, because Hawaii eat our food under them. And still eating our food under them, because 11.625 million to leave FCB to become finance minister for 3 years or so, and then now you're earning 175,000 plus a month as the central bank governor. So you only keep, but when it is that you have a minister of finance who is totally clueless, very good. Carview saying, please have someone moderate the PNM live events online. You know, Nigel did ask me to do that. I think I'll probably do that. He did ask me to add him as a moderator. Nigel O'Connor, His Excellency. Yes, it's good for Hawaii. Jimmy is saying, so true, Dr. Oli is a boss. Yes, the man is. I mean, Dr. Oli was sharing some information with us there, and he's still, even though he's out of the politics, he's still in tune with what is happening. He still has a perspective on it. He still has ideas on what could be done. He went on to explain to us why the government had to make certain decisions, unpopular decisions, but it had to be taken, and what the consequences could have been if they did not take these tough decisions, despite the fact that they knew it was politically unpopular. All of these things he told us, and I'm listening to him and I saying, boy, I wish Dr. Oli, the nation could have heard Dr. Oli say what he's saying to us now. You know, maybe one of these days I'll ask him if he can, if he would mind taking a call and having a chat with you folks, because I know he listens. He listens to this podcast. So I'll throw it out to him and see what he says. Yes, he's writing a book, his memoirs. Shoki saying the PNM should be using Dr. Oli's experience and depth of knowledge. I agree with you. In fact, one of the things he said to me on Friday, he said, boy, I wish I was still on the I wish I was still on the platform. Yes. Yes. Shulin Henry is saying he's brilliant and knows how to make tough decisions. Any good leader must know how to do that. And that's the thing. The UNC knew all the tough decisions that the PNM made. The UNC knew that those decisions had to be made, but they were able to exploit it as it being wicked and draconian. Now that they have come into office and are seeing for themselves and have to make the tough decisions. They're making some tough decisions, but you know what they're saying? Well, it's because of the PNM that we have to do this, and the supporters running with that. They don't care. Yes, it's because of the PNM. Kamala wasn't going to do that, it's because of the PNM. Kamala had to double the traffic fines. Really? Because of us? Well, they said it's not a revenue generation mechanism. So what we had to do with that? As she said, the nation too lawless, and we are a lawless dump, and therefore she needs to rein in those of you who are on the road who have no sense of direction when it comes to the road use. That nothing to do with us. We just had the demerit points, and how many people went and voted for the UNC because they promised they would remove the demerit point system. Today saying, boy, I prefer to have demerit rather than what this government doing when they're receiving tickets at 2,000, 4,000, and 10,000. Yeah, but I told you all your vote is non-refundable. You can't go back to the EBC and say I want it back. So you have to wait until 2030. And these bastards love money so much, they ain't calling no early election. Right? They're staying right there down to the wire because they want to make sure they make their 5 years so that when time for pension, right, the pension will be based on whatever their highest earnings was as a legislator, and in this case it is as a minister, right? So their pension will be based on their ministerial salary. So they're good. Even if they voted out in 5 years, in the next 3 years and some, when these fellas reach 55, they're good. Plus whoever they thief between now and that time, they have nothing to worry about. Folks, it was nice, but it's already been 3 hours and 45 minutes. So we'll chat again next weekend. All right. God's willing. So have a productive week. As always, as I said, I don't have any travel plans until maybe November for Thanksgiving, but you never know how things go. All right. From time to time, parliamentarians are required to travel. I don't know if I will get the opportunity, but we'll see. If not, I'm here for the while. All right. So David McIntyre said, imagine as a prime minister, you leading a nation as a lawless dump and proud to herald that. Exactly. And Tanku about PNM crashed the economy, and PNM crashed the economy. But you had a lot more functional businesses when the PNM was in power. Businesses that survived COVID couldn't survive the UNC. Yeah. You know, many parents struggling and wondering how they're going to buy books and school supplies when school open, and hoping that MPs have book drive and so on. But it's tough. But we're doing the best that we can, and we're seeing what donations we could get from members of the public to be able to provide some level of relief to some of these parents. Whether it is we fill a book list or two, or we provide some backpacks or some sneakers or something. Someone has one of my listeners has made a commitment to send us some refurbished laptops, which we are grateful for. And so once those come, we will find deserving students to give it to. But with the little resources that we have, we continue to do the best that we can. And for those of you who continue to make contributions, whether you come to my office and you bring books, you bring hampers, grocery vouchers or whatever it is, everything is appreciated. And I can tell you the recipients are always grateful to receive those things. All right. Yeah, no, correct. Tax school. No, thank you. Thank you so much, folks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a safe and productive week.